Hello everyone, welcome back to Mortis FM. I am your host, one of them anyway, Cole. Who are you?
I am Grayson, one of your other hosts for Mortis FM.
Oh, hey, I think I met you before, man.
I don't think so.
Oh.
Pleasure to meet you, though.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Wait, it's all coming back to me. Cole, we're called Mortis FM. Did you know that?
Oh, I thought we were Wheel of Fortune or something like that.
That's so stupid. Star Wars.
Welcome back to. I just peeked my mic. Welcome back to Wheel of Fortune, everybody. Spin to win. Anyway.
You ain't winning nothing because there's no wheel. We're called Mortis FM, but we've never talked about the Mortis episodes. We were gonna do it pre-Bad Batch, and we kind of didn't get to it because they were like, here's Bad Batch every week, go. And we were like, all right, sounds good. Now that the storm has kind of passed with Bad Batch and Tales, we're going to talk about the 3 episodes that revolve around Mortis from the Clone Wars.
It is time to return to our roots. Why are we here? Why are we on Mortis? These are the questions. What is Mortis about? Why is there an FM? I don't know.
Is it M or FUM? That's a deep cut reference. That's not Star Wars.
Most BFM.
Yeah, we're just in one of those random caves that when those little acid rain things happens, just because it's scary out there. You know what I'm saying?
We found basically a version of that one cave on Pabu.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hiding under there with our ship.
Growing old.
That's where we're at.
Becoming lovers.
Becoming. I thought.
Oh, sorry. Let's slow down there. Yeah, no. So we're gonna talk about the Mortis episodes. This was kind of a last minute idea. Well, it was. I guess it wasn't last minute. It was more so like we just got so caught up in the wind of it. But this is gonna be kind of like a retrospective of those episodes, as well as kind of speculation for Ahsoka going forward and just kind of picking up on things from the past. Like there's some things in here that connect to Rebels and Ahsoka. Then they made these episodes years before those shows even came out, and I never even noticed.
It's the Mortis arc is one of the most important things about Star Wars that rarely has any content around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
it is ever since this arc came out, there have been like whispers and tales of just what's gonna happen with this. And what's going on with it in the background. It's shown up in Legends books. It showed up in little tidbits in the shows. And now, I think it's finally just coming back out into the limelight. I honestly believe with not just Ahsoka, but with some other projects as well that will potentially go into later on in the episode. This Mortis, like this idea around Mortis and the Mortis gods and stuff, it will like burst forth like a dam breaking into the canon of Star Wars and just kind of change everything as we know it. So why don't we talk about it preemptively, huh? Before all the big stuff starts happening.
Yeah. I think, like, just now knowing what we know in Ahsoka and, you know, maybe other projects going forward, like, this feels like this is going to be one of the main cruxes of stories going forward. Especially upon rewatch, I'm like, man, like they really leave this place like Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan come in, and then the whole thing just gets put into disarray. And I'm like, from what we've seen in Ahsoka and everything, like I think there's teases to kind of connect back to that, but yeah, why don't we hop in to the very first episode? And I'm not going to go like typical, you know, what we did with Bad Batch where we kind of go through like the plot beat for beat for beat. I will try to kind of keep it episode by episode in the case you guys have not watched it. If you've never watched Clone Wars, you could probably watch these episodes pretty self-contained and it not be that big of a deal. There's nothing really going on in the like that connects to anything else. It's just you may not know the characters of Ahsoka and Rex, although I'm sure you know it at this point, but go check out those episodes if you haven't. They're very, very good.
Yeah, I think honestly, well, I mean, yeah, I don't think we're gonna go beat for beat, although we do say that sometimes, and it just happens.
Yeah.
I will say we're probably gonna keep it a little bit more condensed as we are recording this a little bit late at night. This is Mortis FM After Hours at the moment. but I've been very eager to talk about this arc because not only is it special to the podcast because of our name, but it's just such a cool, outlandish part of Star Wars.
It's so like high fantasy, which I love. It's so mythological.
Yeah, it's that mystical sort of stuff that George was originally intending with like the Guardians of the Wills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That we had just never really seen up until, at least like canonically, up until this point. And then they just leave it. These 3 episodes happened, and Anakin's like, this didn't happen, by the way, but essentially they look at each other and they're like, hey, so you remember that time that we went to Mortis and we met all these people, and Obi-Wan just says no, and then like
they never talk about it again.
And they just kind of go, some weird thing out in deep space,
Yeah, which is it. I guess that kind of begs a question, kind of at the end, after we were kind of done talking about them, as like, was any of this real, or like what, like, and it kind of connects back to what we saw in Ahsoka with her in the World Between Worlds with Anakin, where like people were speculating, like, is that real, and it's like kind of doesn't matter if it is or isn't, but it's kind of like speculative of like, it's so weird and mystical, both with that Ahsoka moment and this, that it's like, I think it's pretty real. You can take it how you want, but
I have some things to say about that. We'll definitely get to that when that appears.
Yeah.
But all right.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Let's dive into the very first episode, which is Overlords. Basically, there is a distress signal from what is noted as a Jedi distress code that hasn't been used in over 2,000 years, which is very interesting little detail I've never noticed. And so there's this kind of distress signal out in the middle of the galaxy, and they go to investigate to see if it's a separatist trap. What is this? Like a Jedi code for 2,000 years? And so our party goes there, and so does Rex and his cruiser, and they like can't find each other. They're like, we're at the same coordinates. Where are you guys? And then there's this just giant, if you're looking at the video version, there's an inspiration for our logo right down there. See that little kind of prism? That's kind of what the Mortis Citadel or ship, whatever it is. We don't ever really get answers with that thing.
It's like it feels like a terraformed mobile system.
Yeah, but it's also like not made clear of like, it almost feels more like a portal than anything, because Obi-Wan says, yeah, because it's like when they go in, it blinds them, bright flashing white, and then they get knocked unconscious and they wake up. And then Obi-Wan says he questions if they're even in the same galaxy. They say they might be in a completely other galaxy.
Oh my God.
Wink,
They've been setting it up all this time, haven't they?
Yeah, and I mean, that's gonna just go ahead and like kind of the question, one of the main questions I will want to discuss is Mortis Peridia? Are these the same place? Like, it's kind of, and there's some other signs at the end of the 3rd episode that you're kind of like, oh man, maybe it is, but also maybe it isn't. So, it's the setup here right off the bat. I was like, whoa, all right, 2,000-year-old distress code. They get warped into possibly another galaxy.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know why we really didn't pick up on that until now. It's like Obi-Wan says, I wonder if we're even in the same galaxy, he says as he looks to the camera and winks aggressively. That is so interesting that you pointed that out. I didn't even pick up on that. That is something else, man.
Yeah, he basically goes like, I don't know where in the galaxy we are, even if we're in the same galaxy at all.
It's crazy.
Cool little detail. And so, yeah, I mean, they get out of the ship, and then the daughter jump scares them, and Obi-Wan kind of flirts with her, which is kind of funny.
Man,
he checks her out.
Obi-Wan is always on that constant Riz train. He's always doing that. That's just who he is.
I remember I got into a brief argument with Connor. Connor, I love you, buddy. Congratulations, by the way, on your new youngling.
Congratulations.
We were talking about Dark Disciple, and there's a moment in the book where he's talking about Ventress and how she's like kind of seductive and she's very attractive. And when I read it, I never picked it up in a way where he was like, oh my gosh, she's so hot, bro. But Connor kind of took it that way. And I was like, I mean, the way Obi-Wan is describing her does not seem out of his character. Like, he flirts with her, and they flirt with each other openly in the Clone Wars. So I was and Connor, again, you're allowed to have your opinion. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But when I watched this, I was like, oh my gosh! Like, as soon as the daughter like pops up, he just goes, hello. Like,
yeah. He there's a part of me that thinks that he did not commit to Satine so that he could just riz everyone up and then lead them on and say, oh, sorry, I'm in the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Obi-Wan plays hard to get, bro.
He does. Very hard to get. Grievous can't get him. Maul can't get him. Vader can't get him.
It's so true. The only person who gets one dub on him is Dooku.
Right, but Dooku doesn't even want it. You know, it's.
But yeah, so a little important thing is like they get split up, and you know as soon as they land, like I didn't remember this, and it kind of comes into play later, but. Obviously, it's a very beautiful and vibrant looking planet, but there's no animals whatsoever, which indicates possibly something.
Yeah.
Because Peridia does have animals, so that's important to know, and other life forms. But there's these floating rocks like everywhere, just all across the biome and the land of these rocks. And by the end of the 3 episodes, when everything is kind of broken and dismantled, these rocks fall and collapse to the ground and everything's left in ruin. But yeah, I don't know.
But either way, this is kind of the realm of the daughter, the realm of Ashla almost. And it almost kind of seems like the plants are growing with every step that she takes.
Yep. They specifically say that the seasons change with the time of day as well. They watch it like everything kind of turns into like a fall color, like when every morning is a bright new rejuvenation of the planet, and then by nightfall it turns into a desolate, dark, nasty wasteland, which kind of goes into play of what the father says about like light and dark being day and night. Kind of it's a visual indicator of that. But yeah, she's like everything. I mean, she's even like glowing, like she's like a celestial being.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, you know, she might very well be a celestial, you know.
Yeah.
She is radiant. Very much seems like the embodiment of light. And I believe she says that that her father needs to speak to them.
Yes, it was basically it was the father's doing to kind of summon them here. So they get split up. And Obi-Wan and Ahsoka kind of go on their path into nightfall, whereas Anakin goes to the monastery with the daughter and ends up so he doesn't go with the daughter, right? The daughter's like, stay here, I'm gonna go find the father. And then Anakin's like, I'm not doing that, and so he runs off to the monastery and then confronts the father, and then the father's like, it's nighttime, you'll go to bed.
Doesn't he confronts him with his lightsaber? You know?
Not quite yet. He does in just a little bit, where it's after he has the dream about Shmi with the sun impersonate, which is a very cool scene. And it's kind of renowned now because there's that little clip of Ashley and Sam where they were in the original script, and you know, Anakin is talking to what he thinks is Shmi.
Yeah,
but it's the thing where he's just like, I have a wife now, like I want you to meet her. And Sam's being like, they did meet in the Phantom Menace, and Dave being like,
kind of like looking down embarrassed. Yeah,
and Ashley's like, I've never seen someone out nerd Dave Filoni before. So they changed the line to in the show where he's like, he says, I have a wife, you've met her.
So correct me if I'm wrong, did Shmi's actress come in to voice that?
I think so. I did not verify this. If you want to look it up, you definitely can. But I think you and I have a pretty good ear for voice actors and actresses. and it sounded just like her.
I know.
Which is interesting. I think Shmi's voice actress is like, I could be so wrong about this. I think she's like Ukrainian, which is very interesting because she has like I always as a kid was like, oh, she's an English accent. She does not have an English accent. She has some sort of kind of European accent that I've never heard before. But yes, the son. Sorry, I had to take a gulp of water.
She did.
That's so cool, dude.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
As well as Liam Neeson when he appears as Qui-Gon, which is just such a good scene there too.
He pops up a lot in these episodes. He doesn't just pop up in this first episode.
Yeah.
He also talks to Anakin later on in the third episode as well, which is very interesting.
Makes you wonder how it is that he's able to manifest in this way when later on in the series with Yoda, he is able to only kind of be kind of an echo and follow around in light specks. Maybe it's because Mortis is just this wellspring of the Force.
They literally say in the episode, Mortis, this planet is the Force. They say that. And you're like, or like the Force is so strong that it is a I think Obi-Wan says it's a vergence or a crossroad. He's seen like nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's intriguing to also think about where Balin, he's chasing Peridia or these legends or whatever from things that he had heard, but Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Anakin seemingly have never heard of these people or these legends or myths ever, right? Like they've never even heard a wink of this story.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't mean that Balin, we still don't know exactly what Balin is looking for, but maybe it was one of those things where Balin was he was caught up in the mythos and the stories, like, because Balin is well, I guess he's about Anakin's age, but then again, maybe a little bit older, but maybe, it was just like kind of his generation or his little group of younglings, or maybe even his master told him about it. Like maybe it was a very specific part in the archives that only certain people had access to,
Well, let's keep in mind, Huang, our resident storyteller,
True.
25,000 years old.
So old.
Okay.
Old as dirt.
And I got a lot of stories to tell in my 24, almost 25,
multiply that by 10,000.
Yeah, multiply by 10,000, right? And or by 1,000.
Yeah, you're right. Same thing.
And I think that he's probably gonna talk like a lot, and so one thing that we seem to know about Balin is that he's absolutely enamored by these stories. When Ahsoka talks about it, didn't seem like she was all that interested. So maybe they just weren't listening. You never know. At that point, just kind of dismissed as myth. So there's a lot to tell. Maybe Balin was one of those guys that just stayed after class and was like, "Tell me more."
Maybe he got really deep into like the myths and the ancient religions of the Force, and what it kind of derived from. Because even in Ahsoka, with our limited knowledge, the most recent development is that we have that artwork of Ahsoka and Sabine standing on the hand of the father, just like Balin was, almost like they're following him. They're looking for him.
Definitely implied.
Yeah.
And even at the same time, how do we even know if just the specific terms of Mortis and the father, the daughter, the son, those kinds of things were passed around? Maybe it was just the idea that there was a wellspring in the Force that were controlled by Celestials. Maybe that was all. Yeah, because even Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan didn't pick it up. Even
the like, and you mentioned legends at the very beginning of the episode, like in Plagueis they mention it briefly, where these that. And this is kind of another question that we'll get into that I'd like to talk about in a little bit, or even right now, honestly, are the gods, were the Mortis gods, because they never say god or gods in these episodes, from what I remember. They never say anything. And even the father, when talking to Anakin, when they first meet, or even when he pulls out the lightsaber and he says he's like a Sith or whatever, and he's like, oh, your view on the Force is too narrow-minded. Like, he says that they were very strong Force users that came here to hide. to isolate themselves from the world because they knew of their abilities. And it's like, well, maybe I'm about to get into some speculative territory here, but obviously there's a lot of debate on Anakin truly bringing balance to the Force, right? And these episodes deal with that a lot. Obviously the father wants him, and just, no need to beat around the bush, but he wants him to wants Anakin to replace him because he is sick and dying. And then, a big problem that people have with the sequels is, well, Palpatine coming back defeats what Anakin did and him bringing balance to the Force. Bringing balance to the Force has been this weird, elusive thing where, like, we still don't really know what that means, because it's like, okay, is balance conquering evil? Because that's not what it seems like in these episodes, because when the daughter, spoilers, dies, they're like, the father says the Force is out of balance now. And you're like, that's intriguing. And so my theory here is, I'm like, we cling as Star Wars fans, or even the Jedi, to this one singular prophecy, the prophecy of the Chosen One. Mm-hmm. But we don't know that much about the prophecy, and we even the Jedi are like, well, maybe we misunderstood the prophecy.
Yeah. Now,
my kind of proposition here is, what if there's more than one prophecy? Like, that doesn't mean that there's just one. And like, what if, we see the three main examples that I'm going to use are the Mortis gods, or these celestial beings. Could be, maybe they are the first wave of these chosen ones, where it's not just one. Say there was a prophecy where there is a daughter to hold the light, a son to wield the dark, and a father to keep them in balance, right? Maybe that was the first prophecy. And then the second prophecy being whatever, it is with Anakin. The chosen one will bring balance to the Force, but whatever. I am in a camp that I also think Rey and Ben are on another part of a prophecy that we have not heard. The prophecy of the dyad, which Palpatine says, right? Like, this is something that has not been seen in a long time. Also makes you think maybe the daughter and son are a dyad. Like, a dark side and light side, to want like two that are in one in the Force. And I love little stuff like this. I'm curious on your thoughts, but like, I think just when you think about these, like, people are like, oh, the prophecy, but like Rise of Skywalker, it like undoes the whole thing. And I'm like, but maybe he did bring balance, but it never said anything from what we know that it couldn't go out of balance again.
Right, exactly. That was what I was gonna bring up. So let's think about it this way: the Force has been seemingly astronomically unbalanced for over 1,000 years by the time of the Phantom Menace. Whether it's good or not, I guess the light, Ashla, the Jedi, have been absolutely overpowering the amount of Sith. And so one would say that for the Jedi at this time, they think that bringing balance to the Force is destroying the dark side, eviscerating it. The Sith, the dark side users, believe balance to the Force is eviscerating the light side. And when the father, when the father says the Force is out of balance, that is after the daughter perishes and there's only darkness that remains.
Yep.
So that gives us the understanding that one cannot be without the other for there to be balance, So, I think that personally, my view on this is that Anakin's role as the Chosen One, he was essentially this bringer of the change. He was the Chosen One, but he did not know that it would be to bring balance to the Force by removing a ridiculous amount of numbers of light side users in order to once again kind of make it equal. And then once again, that makes me feel conflicted, because we then start talking about, okay, and then he brought balance to the Force by destroying the Emperor. Okay, but then by that time there are no more Sith again. And so once again, the Force could technically be considered out of balance
Out of
because
balance.
then Luke is still there. So now it's a 1-0 right now. And so it kind of, it's difficult to say. One could suggest that it's really just about getting rid of massive imbalances of power. And so in taking away the exponential amount of Jedi and then removing the most powerful dark side user relatively of all time could be considered a balance, because then there will be a power vacuum. The power that was held by Palpatine and then the droves of Jedi once again releases into the vacuum. It's now out and about.
Yeah.
Because the way that I kind of see the Sith is that, you know, they did the rule of two so that you would just have two supremely powerful beings as opposed to just a bunch of, you know, powerful guys fighting against each other. So then you could think by that time, you know, Palpatine, as he says, is all the Sith. So he's just this Sith Voltron, right? And that's really imbalanced. So got to get rid of that. So you got to kind of release the energy back into the world, or the galaxy. Either way, that's tangential. But I think that the prophecy, as George says, was fulfilled. Whether, you know, we cannot talk about how it happened or how it wasn't supposed to happen or how it did. Either way, we know that the prophecy was complete when the Emperor was defeated. And I don't think that means that it could be thrown out of balance once again. Yeah. Because the galaxy is ever changing. You're very much right in the supposition that maybe the Father was a chosen one. Because if he thinks that Anakin could take his place and only the chosen one could do that, then what does that say about the Father owning that position, right? Would that mean that he was a chosen one? You know?
Yeah.
I would argue like maybe Revan was a part of a prophecy.
I was waiting patiently just to say I have a theory that whenever they bring Revan in, I firmly believe he will be made another chosen one, because he is a character that goes up, down, and he balances things out, right?
That's what he's all about. You know, whether it was a good or a bad thing, through the detonation of that super weapon, he ended the Mandalorian Wars, right? Maybe Tar Vizsla was a chosen one, you know? Maybe there's a prophecy about Tar Vizsla, and like that's not even saying that all of these prophecies are only chosen one based. Yeah. Because I fully believe, the dyad in the sequel trilogy, that's probably a prophecy as well.
Yes.
That because they had a even in terms of the Force, supernatural connection there. And who knows what that means? Was that fulfilled? Is it still ongoing with Ben gone? I don't know. It brings up a lot of questions.
I have that same question as well. Like you said, you make a good point, which kind of puts this at bay a little bit. But you made the point that George, as we know it, said he did fulfill the prophecy, right? He did bring balance to the Force. But I, you know, when I'm watching this, I'm like, well, Anakin he didn't take his place as the Father in these episodes.
Right.
And I'm like, but obviously he's still kind of around because his Force ghost is ever present and he's still teaching Ahsoka lessons beyond his physical passing. There is no death. There is the Force.
Yep.
Does that mean that, what if let's just hypothetically speaking, maybe this is heretical, right? What if he hasn't brought balance to the Force yet? Like, what if evil was defeated and whatever happens, like, I'm willing to put money on the fact that I think we will get more Hayden in Ahsoka season 2, right?
I think so as well. I think there are still, there may yet be lessons yet unlearned.
Right. And maybe Ahsoka needs to speak with Hayden. Speak with Anakin more. I mean, he's obviously watching, and she's at the point where she can see him now. And you know, the more like now kind of full looping back to where this conversation started with Qui-Gon being able to manifest himself on Mortis, like that would imply to me that Anakin can easily do so as well. And I'm like, what if Anakin is a key player in whatever Baylan is looking for, you know, whatever is calling to him? Like, there's all these moving pieces. And I'm like, if to say that, like, maybe he hasn't quite brought balance of the Force yet, like, that would be extremely interesting to me.
Balin ends up going up to Anakin, wherever it is let's say he makes it to Mortis and Anakin's there. And Balin is like, I'm here to assume the role of the father of the chosen one. And Anakin's just like, you're not that guy, pal.
Trust me, you're not that guy. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is like, I think Balin maybe wants to usurp this sort of destiny and become this new father. But, that is seemingly Anakin's destiny, and maybe he hasn't fully taken that yet. Maybe him defeating the Emperor and sacrificing himself for his son is the first step to transcending into becoming that. Like, nothing says you have to be physically alive to take that role.
Yeah, that could be, because given that he's able to manifest himself in the world between worlds,
in a physical form, like he's
in a physical
there.
form. And he's very much still enacting he's still enacting his will to affect the events of the galaxy. Because in technicalities, you could say that he did save Ahsoka, right? Because I don't know if she by chance fell into the world between worlds. I think it's pretty, not like exactly evident, but one could say that Anakin potentially saved her and brought her in.
If Ezra could pull her through the world between worlds, I sure as hell Anakin can.
Yeah, this is just the saga of people just dragging Ahsoka through dimensions.
She's just like, flailing through.
So clearly he feels that there is work left undone. And I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him again in the next season. Yeah. Because I am pretty satisfied with where it left off.
Absolutely.
But he could very much still have a role, and if he does, I'll be very happy. I will greet it with open arms. I know Hayden would as well. He had a blast.
Of course.
And just being able to see more Hayden, and especially just more fulfillment of Anakin's arc, is a real treat. So I would be here for that.
Yeah, I would be down as well. I mean, I know obviously this is very speculative, but it's a lot of those things were running through my mind as I was kind of speculating. But I know we did a lot of speculation, so I guess we'll hop back into the plot. So Anakin, he's with the father. He has a little vision with Shmi, whereas Obi-Wan and Ahsoka are off. They're separated. They take cover in this kind of cave, and they're passed out. They sleepy. And I wanted to note that the way this episode shot is unlike any other episode in the Clone Wars, where there is a lot of like really creepy movements, that I find very fascinating. And I'm like, man, like, so the shirt that I'm wearing my Mortis shirt for audio listeners.
That's a great shirt.
Thank you. Jedi Kalen did this back for a Halloween drop. And I was kind of like, I guess Halloween is befitting to Mortis, whatever. Now rewatching the episodes and from quite some time, I'm like, Mortis is kind of spooky. Like, especially when it gets overtaken by darkness and the sun and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is kind of a creepy place. Like, it's unsettling to say the least.
A lot of the stuff that happens with the sun is very, very dark side.
Yeah, we'll get to it, I think, in the second episode. But there was one little moment that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary, bro. But
I mean, it's the manifestation of the dark side,
Yeah, and it's interesting to note later on that he is the manifestation of the dark side. But I put here in my notes that the son, or the father, talks about the son saying that like he's falling closer to the dark side, like almost like he hasn't fully gone to the dark side yet. Let me see if I can find that, because also the son is like constantly, it's in the beginning of the second episode, so I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but the son says, like, when Obi-Wan accuses him of being a Sith, the son says, we will destroy the Sith and the Jedi. So he's an op of the Sith too. So it's interesting. Like, this is, I guess, he is the embodiment of the dark side. The daughter is the light side. But it is interesting that the father notes that, like, oh, he's growing closer to the dark side.
Well, you could say that wanting to destroy both the Sith and the Jedi is peak dark side, because they aren't even aligning themselves with an order anymore. It's all about, I'm going to destroy everything. It's all going to be about me. And that is more Sith than the Sith themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say something about the Mortis gods has always confused me, because we know that they used to be, or as they call themselves, used to be like force wielders that kind of stumbled upon this and assumed these roles, right? So they aren't exactly pure manifestations of these things, because if they were, with the death of the daughter, like the light side wouldn't exist anymore. With the death of the son and the father, those things wouldn't exist anymore. And so it kind of makes you wonder, like, are they really just avatars of these parts of the Force? And in actuality, they are once again something small in a much larger picture, because they're not even related to the Wills, like the Guardians of the Wills. We don't even see them until season 6 with Yoda, and they don't say anything about Mortis or whatever, stuff like that. And I don't know, it just makes me think, well, are these guys just kind of really powerful Force users that just reach their peak? Because I think what is being supposed is that they were Celestials, which in Legends, as I understand it, were like an elevated form of humanoids, where they were just so closely connected with the Force that they could be immense conduits of it. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's the quote that I have here, and it's kind of towards the end of this first episode. The father says that they are force wielders that retreated from the world and kind of isolated themselves here. And then he also, I noted here, he says there are some, like, the reason they hid here is because there are some that would like to exploit our power. And I'm
Balin's goal.
Very well, maybe. I mean, he doesn't know what's happened to Mortis yet, so maybe he's seeking this out, maybe trying to go straight to the source, from these legends and everything.
He finds out they're all dead.
It's and that's gonna probably cause not good things, but it's just, I know a lot of people, when it comes to Mortis and the War Between Worlds and all of this stuff, people are so, and we have been the preachers of this from the day one of this podcast, right? Everyone wants answers. They're like, they got to explain all this. And it's like, honestly, like, I know we will get more answers, but I liked having these discussions and this speculation of the prophecy or prophecies, these different destinies, dyads, chosen ones. Like, could there be more than one? What was brought into balance? And especially with these celestial beings, and are they even celestial beings? Are they just Force users that are that strong that their prophecy, their destiny was to come here, to lock themselves away, and to be the epitome of dark, light, and the middle, but they don't maybe they don't control it, but they have some kind of great weight to it. It's just so fascinating. Like, and I like that we don't have all the answers, because we can sit here and be like, well, maybe this means this one thing or this other thing,
it's like, think about the Bendu from Rebels. Like, what is
that
he
about?
What is he? I mean, is he is he a homie of the father? Do they have different viewpoints?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I'm being honest, the Bendu just kind of falls in the same category, right? Of just mystical Force thing that feels related but also unrelated, related but not enough to change the events of history. Because, like, the son wanted to take over everything. Why didn't he just do it? Why didn't he just leave Mortis and go? And
in the episode, he's like, he's clearly bound to this physical realm, because he wants to take the ship and leave. That's like a crux of the whole plot, is they're like, don't let him get on the ship because he will leave and he will wreak havoc upon the galaxy. Yeah. And you're like, okay, what's that about?
Is it a prison? Did the father lock his children there?
Yeah,
is he keeping? Here's the thing as well. He wants. When the daughter dies, he says the Force is now unbalanced, right? But the Force was already unbalanced before they even got to Mortis.
Still Sith roaming around?
well, like there's the point I was meaning there was that there are thousands of Jedi and there are only
Right.
2 Sith. There is an immense imbalance in the Force, and
Yeah.
it has been for millennia. But at Mortis, when they get there, the Force is in balance there. So
True.
what is he talking about? Like, what about Mortis affects external things? And yeah, it's just more answers that have yet to be given. And I'm gonna say, I think Dave's been cooking this for a long time.
Dude,
I think
I'll there's one little thing that I picked up on my dad was watching with me, and I was like, there is no way this is in here this far ahead. You'll see. in a
really
second.
okay, yeah. And so yeah, I'm thinking about how things affect each other because Anakin left Mortis not doing what the father wanted him to do, and he was still able to bring balance to the Force without going back there. So I'm just wondering how it's all connected.
Yeah. I also I want to have a little bit of a discussion because I think maybe you and I may have a little bit of a disagreement here, or I don't
Really?
know. I think it's all speculation because,
Sure.
and I think that a lot of this basis comes from. There was that interview with Freddie Prinze Jr. where he's talking about balance, right? He's like 2 and 2 twins and like the dark side or whatever. So they're
Yeah.
talking about light and dark. I personally, and this may be folly, I don't know, a lot of people base balance on the numerical amount of people who are within the dark side and the light side, right? And the way you're
Right.
speaking is that you're like, oh, there's thousands of Jedi and there's 2 Sith. But obviously
Yeah.
we know the Force is not like, when it comes to the strength of the dark side and the strength of the light side, obviously, yes, there is an imbalance there. But also, I would argue that like Palpatine and Vader or Dooku or whoever or Maul, like they are, those two specifically, and this is kind of the way the rule of 2 works, like they are so much more powerful like
Yeah,
Force users
I-
than many of the Jedi, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So the thing is like when I think something is being brought into balance, I don't think about and again, this may be folly. I don't think about the numerical amount of Force users because again, like there is, even with the lightest of Jedi, there is still darkness within them. You know, there is
Sure,
still
yeah.
them trying to find that balance. So like when people say like, oh, you know, Vader brought balance to the galaxy or the Force because he killed all the Jedi, I'm like, well, that would look pretty crappy on the Force then, wouldn't it? You know, like the fact that they just want to have all these people die just for the sake of there being a balance of darkness and light. And I'm like, is that what that means? Like, I view it as there is a balance of light and dark within the galaxy throughout every living being, even people who have the smallest trace of Force sensitivity. And
Yeah.
I think the Mortis stuff kind of connects to that, but I think the way you're speaking, you view it as like, okay, Vader took out all the Jedi, and then it kind of brought it to balance, and then Palpatine got knocked out, which I agree. I think when Palpatine gets killed, or killed at least in the end of Return of the Jedi, that I would deem that as being out of balance because I'm like, okay, there's no Sith Lords in the galaxy right now, at least, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just I'm not really asking a question. I just think it's interesting that I think you view it in a more numerical way of people, whereas I view
Sure.
it as like the strength of the all-encompassing dark side and light side. It's interesting. It's fun to talk about.
So, I'll just say, like, I think
Okay.
I agree. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. Essentially, like, I put the numbers into question when I'm thinking about the strength of Ashla and Bogan respectively, right? So as I said before, Palpatine at his peak was like, quote, you know, all of the Sith, an absolute behemoth of dark side energy.
Yeah.
And so he is, that's why I like the rule of 2, you know, one person kind of taking all of the power so that they grow exponentially in the dark side as opposed to it being separated. So I agree. I think what I was saying when I was talking about thousands of Jedi, I'm just saying that is an example of just how abundant usage of the light side of the Force is in comparison. So, and it makes you question it because, as we know, when Anakin comes into the picture, there are only two things that we really know. When Anakin shows up, the Force is unbalanced, and when he dies, he balanced it. You know, what those mean is we don't know. So like, I'm gonna say that I agree, but I'm thinking of it numerically just to kind of make it more tangible as evidence. And you could, and I'm starting to think that maybe it is because both sides are so incredibly powerful that they both need to be brought to heel. Because at this time, the light is propagating all across the galaxy, especially in terms of the High Republic. Like, the Jedi were everywhere. The Jedi Order's influence was everywhere. They had thousands of them. The dark side itself was being hunted and stamped down to its, root and stem, which means it was incredibly powerful. But those that lived in the dark side, they coalesced their power in secretly spreading it like a poison in someone's veins. But at its root, it was like this nuclear core of immense power. So the light was spreading out, and the dark side was like coalescing all of its power.
It was ready to implode, right? Where it was like a seismic charge, right? Where it's getting all bottled up and
Yeah, and so when the father wants to test Anakin's aptitude of being the chosen one, what does he do? He has Anakin bring them to heel. And what does Anakin do? He brings both the light and the dark to heel by getting rid of the abundance of the light and then reducing the amount of controlled, coalesced energy of the dark by getting rid of the Emperor. So I think it is about the strength of both of them.
True.
That it got out of control.
I guess I guess to correct myself, I guess I was thinking of that like they're not mutually exclusive, right? Like,
right.
Because it is like the strength of it, of the dark side and the light side. Because immediately I was like, I guess I was taking it at face value, where I was like, well, that means after Order 66, then it was brought to balance. It's like, but no, allegedly, like from what we know, he brought it to balance when he defeated the Emperor, which was the reigning darkness. Because when he became Vader, it was literally like light was, well, I would say in the Clone Wars, it was kind of fluctuating, right? And then it was the dark side shot up, right? It was all the Jedi are gone, and even just, I kind of view the Force. We were actually talking about Edge of the Empire before this, of like, darkness can the darkness can still influence the Force without it being Force sensitive, like the Nihil, for example, in the High Republic. Like, granted, the Jedi are more abundant than the Nihil, but the Nihil is that rising darkness in a much different way than what we would think as just the Jedi and Sith. And a lot of people think about that. They're like, oh, light side Jedi, dark side Sith. It's like, no, that's not always the case. Like, even the son says, like, and the father, they're like, oh, it's not just Jedi and Sith, guys. Like, it's Ashla and Bogan, and that is overreigning out of all beings, because all living beings are connected into the network and weave of the Force.
They're simply orders that use those specific parts of the Force.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we don't know what balance and unbalance in the Force means.
It's fun to speculate.
I think that at the time of the Clone Wars, the light and the dark side were both equally unbalanced in terms of how powerful they both were.
Yeah.
And then the darkness pulled its trump card, made the light fall all the way down, and then it came back up, and then the darkness was also brought to heel, dissipated its power, just kind of went off into the wind, and once again, the Force was balanced because there were no two massive exertions of those powers. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I guess it's like a reset in the galaxy almost, which then kind of goes back to Balin, where he's like, this is cyclical, that this is all going to happen again, right? And that,
more prophecies.
More prophecies. Like, it doesn't mean that just because it was brought into balance doesn't mean it can't be. Like, Anakin literally says, and I'm sorry, like, if you disagree, I'm just spelling out, this is how it is in the movies. Anakin says to Rey, bring back balance as I did. He literally
Yeah.
says, like, I did bring it to balance. Now it's your turn to bring it to balance, you know?
Yeah, and so that means he explicitly states it's not. It's
Yeah.
not balanced anymore. I brought it back. Now it's not.
And that's just straight Palpatine right there, you know? Like
Yeah.
guys, go read Darth Plagueis. I beg you. Take my knowledge. I beg you. Because that book informs so much. Even with it being Legends, it informs so much about. I think it honestly enhanced our knowledge of the balance of the Force and like how the Force kind of bites back.
Yeah.
When darkness tries to kind of manipulate it, like when Plagueis tries to manipulate life, what does it do? Creates Anakin. You know, like it may, whether that's Plagueis' fault or the Force's fault, we'll never know. But that's what happened.
Like, it's almost like witchcraft in a way, because like one of the rules of witchcraft, as they say, is that what you I'm kind of gonna butcher it, but like what you dole out to the universe will be doled back to you threefold. So like be careful what kind of things that you do, what kind of things you meddle with, because the universe is always going to bring it back to where it was.
Darkness rises and light to meet it.
Powerful light, powerful darkness. That's what you have. And that's just how it is. I mean, what if the prophecy of the Chosen One isn't even, and like we've been saying stuff like this, that like Anakin's not the only Chosen One. What if there are more prophecies? But what if this prophecy of the Chosen One is a repeating prophecy? It's the same one. It's not just about Anakin. Like the prophecy still stays there. That there will be a Chosen One to eventually bring balance. That just happens cyclically.
Every so many years, another Chosen One comes along. You know,
Another
and you'll never be able to identify it. Yeah, another one. Yeah. Anyway, back to Mortis. The first hour of this discussion has been amazing. Like I hope everyone's enjoying this, because this is the stuff that I wanted to get into, so I'm very excited. But back to Overlords.
We're still on the first episode.
Yeah, we're about to wrap it up. But basically, when they're split up, Anakin has his little thing with Shmi, who actually is the son. And Anakin confronts the father, says he's a Sith, and he's like, your view of the Force is basically very black and white. He shuts his lightsaber down.
Shuts his lightsaber off.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then he's like, I want to have a test, right? You know, if you he basically just wants to gauge, is this guy the Chosen One? I had heard that the Chosen One was in the galaxy, and I wanted to find out myself. So he lured them there. Meanwhile, like I said, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka are in their little cave. Obi-Wan has a vision of Qui-Gon, talks about the Chosen One. He's like, I've trained him as best I could. Do you remember that part?
I just thought of something that it makes me go. He said that he had heard that the Chosen One was in the galaxy, and he wanted to know for himself. How old is this prophecy?
I don't think we know.
Because people saying that, right? He wouldn't just believe it unless he knew that there was some truth to it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean...
But he also says, he's like, but this is what the prophecy says, is like that you'll do this, and that, like, you know, and like almost... But like...
He almost sounds like a previous Chosen One, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe... Like, that's what I'm saying, is like, what if... Imagine... This is not going to happen. Imagine if the father was Revan.
Wow. I honestly don't. Okay. How about this though? When they bring Revan back, I'm saying when, not if, he ends up meeting the father.
That'd be so gas, dude.
And like he goes to Mortis or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be so great. I would be such a big fan.
But it's so interesting to note. How many years has KOTOR take place before the Clone Wars?
2000.
What was that Jedi distress code?
2,000 years old. Don't do that. Don't do that to me.
I'm just saying, bro. He kind of looks like an old man, Revan. That's all I'm saying, bro.
Man, that'd be
honestly, like, I would love that. I think that'd be so cool.
I think that would be really great. I also believe that that people would be so like up in arms over it. But when it comes to Star Wars,
why?
Because of the toxic fan base, man. Like they will take that that awesome thing and go, it's character assassination. Like that's not Revan. Why is he an old man? I want him to look so cool. He got stabbed in the back by a,
dude, if there was any, you're completely right. That's exactly how people will act. But if there was any character in the legacy of Legends, because at the time when these episodes were made, Legends was still being made. The Fate of the Jedi books with Abeloth and everything. The Old Republic was in its prime. I think probably around that time is when the Revan DLC came out for the Old Republic. We know Revan was very much light side, dark side, light side, dark side. He could not make up his mind. If there's anyone who knows balance, it's Revan. And I mean, as far as we know from what Revan looked like in the Old Republic, I could see him being very much aged up into a father type, which, obviously there was also like the thing of, was Revan was going to be in one of those deleted episodes on like Korriban,
Revan
but like
and Bane.
Yes, Bane was already in it, but it was going to be Revan was going to be there as well. So, but I don't want to mean to get people's hopes up too high, but I just think it's very coincidental that if there was a character that was 2,000 years old that had a Jedi distress signal and was looking for the next chosen one, if Revan was a chosen one, that would be cool. Just saying.
I think Revan being a chosen one is, I'm just headcanoning that right now.
Yeah.
Just given his story, that seems like a certainty.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, I believe that deleted scene with Revan and Bane was supposed to be in this arc. I think it was supposed to be the son talking to both of them.
Right. Yes. In the wellspring of the dark side.
Yeah. Which, again, that brings up, like, why would he be looking to them for guidance?
Mm-hmm.
Unless he isn't, like, the dark side made manifest. I think he is just kind of... I really think that they're just avatars of these parts of the Force, but they don't represent them, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's more or less like Force demigods or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know they can die. They physically have to get on a ship to leave. Like, I think demigods is kind of the best term possible for that.
Yeah, because it's like Percy Jackson holds a lot of the powers of Poseidon, but he's not Poseidon. He's Poseidon's son. He carries those powers, but he's not the god of the sea himself.
Yep.
Maybe it's just like this is what the zenith of this kind of force usage gets you. And maybe that's why they lock themselves away, because they themselves were so unbalanced that they literally changed the scales of wherever they were at.
Like the father said, there are some that would exploit their power because of it.
Yeah, if you released the sun into the galaxy, the dark side just by proxy would become so powerful.
It would just become so strengthened. Like,
yeah, and the same case for the daughter, right?
And
so maybe
let's think about this again. Both the Jedi and the Sith used Revan's power.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there are some that would exploit their power, and people exploited Revan's power. And I would imagine maybe if he got to a point where he had reached such a godlike status to be like, I'm done. I will be the symbol of balance for my two children, right? And I'm taking them with me, and I'm locking ourselves away because we know if one of us goes off into the galaxy, things will be bad.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know. Maybe Dave, work your magic. It's not going to happen. Let's not get our hopes up. But it's a cool theory.
I will say, I don't think the father is Revan. I do think Revan was a chosen one.
Yeah.
And that if he met him, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's so cool.
Maybe he got that code from Revan. Oh my god.
Maybe
Revan used that code, and then the father just reused it because the father was never a Jedi.
What if the last time they had someone that it's not Revan, if there was the last person who had come to Mortis was Revan, right?
That means a Jedi must have been there, because unless the father was a Jedi, how would he get access to that code?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
This ain't over.
It's not. I think we will slowly get more answers in Ahsoka season 2.
It's crazy, man.
But Yeah.
gonna be crazy.
Okay. So yeah, Obi-Wan talks to Qui-Gon, and basically he's the kind of asks, is he the chosen one, or he thinks he's the chosen one, and Obi-Wan's like, I've trained him, but I'm not really sure, whatever. And then Ahsoka has a vision, which actually kind of hints at her fate way down the line, where older Ahsoka talks to young Ahsoka and just says there is much contradiction in you. And it was and I know that's kind of a vague statement, but when she's talking about it, she basically is like, my master, he's reckless and impatient, but I trust him with my life. And she says there's much contradiction in you, and this vision is what kind of compels Ahsoka to be like, we need to go find Anakin because he's in trouble, which is happening simultaneously with kind of his little thing with the son. But the way she says it makes it think, like, if we think about Ahsoka as a character, she is a very contradictive character where, okay, she is a Jedi, but she's not a Jedi. But then, like she's like wants to save all these clones or whatever, but then she'll let them die, like, let them die in a crash, which, like, I'm not saying that, that's kind of like the Batman thing in Batman Begins, where he's like, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you either, sort of thing.
There wasn't really any other way.
Right, there wasn't another way. But then you think about in Ahsoka, like, then she kind of comes back into the light. But again, and then she's training Sabine as a Jedi Master Padawan. But again, she's still not a Jedi. And I just think that one little statement, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but yeah, Ahsoka, and I'm not saying that is like a flaw of her character, but that she is not in a negative way, she is a contradictive character where she's another
wanderer.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess that's what happens when you're trained by Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. I mean, very much so, because he is also kind of a contradictive, exception to being a Jedi. I believe they even say that in this episode, that like he's far more than just a Jedi. But yeah, basically they get kidnapped. They try to go find Anakin, and then just like what you said earlier, they're kind of brought into this arena, and the father's like, you can only save one of them. And then Obi-Wan gives him this advice. He's like, this planet is the Force, use it. And then Anakin does his Battlefront 2 super move that was busted at launch.
Retribution.
Just and saves both of his friends. So cool, dude. I actually had forgotten that move was from these episodes, and I was like, what a deep cut. That's so cool.
Well, like when like that scene when like he's doing that move and the camera's revolving around him and the time of the day is like rapidly changing.
Yeah, dude.
It's just very, very cool. I think that overall this arc is just a very special part of Star Wars.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I love this mystical kind of stuff. Like people trash people who shall remain unnamed, who we don't know, will trash on Andor for its lack of mysticism and like it being too realistic and lack of stuff of the Force. But the thing is that I think Andor is S tier. I also think that the Mortis arc is S tier. I love all parts of Star Wars, and I think that a little bit that there's some of it for everybody.
Right.
And this arc really scratches that mysticism itch.
Absolutely. Like, this is Andor is the extreme, whatever side you want to call it. It's the extreme side on the scale where it's like no Force users, no mysticism. This is man, like in the alley, deep in the mud, that's kind of espionage. This is the complete opposite. This is high fantasy, gods, Force, weird weapons, light and dark. Like, it's straight up fantasy. And it's interesting is, I think, at least for me, and I believe it's the same for you, probably why we've been, one of the reasons why we've been friends for so long, is, at least it's just in terms of our Star Wars fandom, is our two favorite things when it comes to Star Wars is like the Force and Jedi and Sith, and then bounty hunters, smugglers, crime, like deep just bounty hunters, all of that stuff. And those are two very deeply contradicting things, where one is very religious and philosophical and however you want to describe it, and the other is like space GTA. Well, like there are so many parts of Star Wars that I love, and when I list them off, all of them sound like they appeal to just completely different people. I could tell you about how much I love
Luke training with Yoda on Dagobah, and Yoda telling him how we are luminous beings. We're not this matter here. And then I could also tell you, man, I love playing as Delta Squad and Republic Commando, like
there you go.
Facing off against super terrifying battle droids, not knowing an absolute whiff about the Force, taking a look at a lightsaber and going,
Yep.
I think I'll prefer my gun. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think that, and you could, if you want to call it back, it's all from A New Hope. It was all there. You had the mysticism, you had Obi-Wan telling Luke about the Force, but then you had the dank, dirty cantina. You had Han saying hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster, and it's all there. And I just love Star Wars.
Yeah, I love Star Wars. There is a little piece
so
for
vast.
every person. Exactly. Like, I mean, if you like the crime syndicates and smugglers and bounty hunters and that grittier side of Star Wars, that's there for you. But if you like the space battles and the X-Wings and your cruisers and your Corvettes and your battle tactics, that's there for you. But if you like your soldiers on the ground, those kind of battles, or if you like Jedi versus Sith and ancient religions and old temples and dark side relics, that's there for you. It's endless.
Or if you like droids. If you like all the droids and sci-fi stuff like that, or if you want to have like more of a less modernized, less technologically centered story, you've got those planets with less evolved species and all that jazz.
More tribalistic.
Yeah, like you've got the Ewoks and you've got the Gungans and all that stuff, and there's so much to do, and that's why when I go to places like Star Wars Celebration, everyone has all these kinds of differences, right? You've got the people dressing up as Boba Fett or ghost busting Mandalorians, which was such a great cosplay. But then you also have Lord Starkiller or the classic Darth Vader, or just some guy wearing a Luke Skywalker costume, or someone walking around as C-3PO. And they all love different parts of Star Wars, but we all had one thing in common, is that we love Star Wars.
We love Star Wars. And
I think if everybody just kind of acknowledged that and just say, hey, you love Star Wars, I love Star Wars, I think that
is the best thing about little hubs like that, is just, I mean, when I think about, and this is so tangential to Mortis, I promise we'll get right back to it, just because this has become just like a full-on...
It's been an hour and a half of tangential stories.
Yeah, and I'm here for it, bro. But like, I mean, we talk about it all the time. We have not been to a celebration since 2017, and yet we still, every year, I know, maybe Japan. Maybe, we don't know.
Maybe. Very,
maybe.
very... unlikely, but maybe.
Yeah,
we'll
maybe.
See.
Who knows? But we think about, like, I mean, obviously that was the first time you and I met in person.
Yeah, so that's automatically more special,
exactly,
as an event.
Right. And then we just think about like all the moments that we shared together, and then just being able to like walk up to a person and there being like, as long as there was one little commonality of like, was there a Starkiller? You fist bumped every Revan you saw, dude.
I did.
Yeah. And it's like, that is so awesome. But then you've like, it's from canon to Legends to Old Republic to as far, like, hundreds of years after the Battle of Endor. Like, it's like, I mean, you go, I think last year they had an entire group of people dressed as the Narkina 5 prisoners.
Yeah.
And they were like, one way out, like around the around the complex.
Dude, when we went there, you remember those guys dressing up as the rebels running towards the ATM machine trying to get the Death Star plans?
And there was like the glass door, and they cracked it open, and they were like, here. Dude,
so great.
That was peak, dude.
I saw 4 guys that were in their suits, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall, dressed up as Delta Squad.
Dude, those guys were units, bro.
Yeah, those guys were massive. And then I had that one Darth Revan that was just my favorite to fist bump because, as Grayson said, I made it a personal mission at 2017 Orlando, Florida Star Wars Celebration to fist bump every Darth Revan that I saw. Don't ask. I was 17. I was trying to figure it out.
You gotta do it next time.
Gotta do it next time. And I saw this Revan that was absolutely dripped out. It literally just looked like him. And I stopped him and I was like, I'm so sorry. It's a personal mission of mine to fist bump every Revan that I see. Could I fist bump? And he just paused and he looked me up and down and then he speaks. And when he speaks, I hear a voice modulator. So it comes to the mask, which was so cool. I didn't expect that. And he said, I am Darth Revan, Dark Lord of the Sith. And you expect a mere, like just this thing of me. And then I was like, I think all I said was, yeah. And then he paused once more and he said, kneel, then you may fist bump. And I was like, you got it, man. So I got down on one knee and he was like, rise. And I got up and I fist bumped him. And when he did it, he did a very small just, he just moved his fingers and he still stayed in character, but the finger thing was just so funny to me. It was little memories like that compounded multiple times over into 3-4-ish days of one amazing Star Wars Celebration trip. And the one thing that I will always say about that trip is that it made me so happy because I never felt like there was someone that I wouldn't get along with, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just
every person
really
was there for
special.
one thing, no matter what little subsection of little thing of Star Wars that is part of your Star Wars. We all got along, and it was beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So it's why I love, this arc and then Andor or whatever. So back to the episodes.
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about, right?
So yeah, basically Anakin saves them, and the father's like, "Okay, you are the chosen one. You can leave, I guess." Well, he basically is like, "I can't stay here. Like, yeah, I gotta go,
bro. I got a wife. There's a war going on."
Yeah, he's like, "I can't stay here," and then the father's like, okay, fine then, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the first episode wraps. They fly away and it's funny because each of these episodes they wrap and you're like, oh, I guess that's it. And then like if I was watching these for the first time, I'd be like, oh, these are just okay, we're already done. We're already done here. But then immediately in the second episode, they're flying away, and Anakin is kind of, he's pondering. He's like, I don't know if I should have done that. Like maybe I do need to be here or whatever. And then the son pulls up. This is altar of Mortis, and the son kidnaps Ahsoka and takes her away. And then the ship crashes. They try to chase the brother or the son to his little Eye of Sauron tower thing, which again looks very very Peridian. And it's not the same one, but it's kind of similar. I'm like, picking up some stuff here. But Anakin crashes and they kind of get stranded while I think.
And people just be crashing to and fro on these on Mortis.
Yeah. There's all because there's all these like technological glitches and stuff like the technology acts up or whatever. So there's a lot of times where they're like leaving and then like they get stopped leaving and go back. There's a little bit of wishy-washiness here, but the son has Ahsoka kidnapped, and this is one of the creepiest moments in this episode. Is that little? I mean, it is revealed to be the son.
Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I've been here for thousands of years, and he ends up letting her go, and then like biting Ahsoka, which turns her to like literally like corrupts her and turns her into the dark side, or just like turns her into like the dark side version of Ahsoka, basically.
Yeah, his corruption thing is really interesting. I would say though, it's also extremely indicative of just the dark side. Is just how it corrupts people, but the son somehow solved the secret of that Palpatine would 100% covet, instead of subtly manipulating a child for 22, 23 years, just bite them.
And then Ahsoka is just, her veins turn black and eyes go yellow.
Palpatine sees Anakin on Naboo. He's like, well, watch your career with great, and just bites him. And Anakin's like, I suddenly have a desire to kill everything and everyone.
He just kills everybody. That'd be so funny. So basically the son uses Ahsoka as bait because first of all, he wants to get off this planet. And also he doesn't really want Anakin to leave quite yet. Also, I forgot to mention, I wrote down the quotes at the beginning of each of these episodes, kind of the little, blue text ones that they do before every episode. The one for Overlords is, balance is found in the one who faces his guilt, which ties back to the prophecy, in a way where...
That is,
That's Vader. That's Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi right there.
Write that down real fast.
Write that down. And then this one is he who surrenders hope surrenders life, which is also a very, very good quote. Clone Wars episodes be spitting bars. Do you want me to repeat that again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Balance is found in the one who faces his guilt. Cole's going to use that as motivation, which I do too, because it's actually really, really good. But yeah, so Ahsoka is corrupted. Details get a little fuzzy here for me just because we've been covering a lot and it's already been an hour and a half, so hopefully you guys are enjoying. Although I got a lot of demand after our live stream last week where people were like, more 3.5 hour long episodes, and I was like, I don't know if I have that in me every week. Yeah, I did. Our friend Jimmy Saberjunk, amazing lightsaber craftsman, he commented and he was like, more 3-hour episodes, please. So we're halfway there.
We're halfway there. All you have to do is just press the replay button and just watch it again.
just if we cap out at an hour and a half, just restart. No. But I did have it written down here. I mentioned it earlier, a little offhand comment that the father says the sun drifts ever closer to the dark. So, which means
I guess that means he's not all the way there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is some interesting things that give credence to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the sister dies in the third episode, like he is actively upset.
He says to her body, like, you were truly the only person I ever loved.
Yeah. And even when the father ends up goading him into death, basically, like he looks so sad. He looks so sad. He's like, Father, I didn't
have to come to this. You know?
Yeah, I guess it's really just the dark side.
The way of the dark side.
Yeah, it's just consequences.
Right.
Suffering. Suffering. There it is. It's suffering. Yeah. The end of the chain, man.
No, you think it will give you specific outcomes, and then at the end, you end up suffering more than you ever thought you ever would. That is the nature of the dark side. But yeah, so the sun, there's a whole lot of visions and stuff in this second episode specifically. The third episode's a little bit more cut and dry. But I have here that the son, when he's speaking to Obi-Wan, he says, "We will destroy the Sith and the Jedi." Or no, that's to Anakin. My bad. He says that to Anakin. I believe, because there's a point when Anakin is knocked unconscious and he's like talking to another version of Anakin, and then it ends up being the son.
He actually gets angry. He's like, "We will destroy the Sith and the Jedi." Like,
yeah, because he says, he's like, "You're Sith," and he's like, He's like, "We will destroy the Sith and the Jedi." And then I think early on as well, when he's asked if he's the Sith, he says yes and no, which is very, very interesting. It's so elusive.
So many answers.
Yeah.
Did J.J. Abrams write this? Him and his mystery box.
So yeah, there's a lot of this happening. I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. I apologize, but you know.
It is 11:30. Give us a break.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. But one thing I did notice, and I think this was intentional by Dave, and I failed to mention it early on in the first episode, that the ship that they use to go to Mortis, which is a ETA class cruiser, is
estimated time arrival. No.
Yeah, it is the same ship that Balin and Shin use.
Hey, well,
yeah, which is just like a kind of like a visual storytelling thing of like, hey, I mean, and I wish I picked up on that sooner, but it is the exact same model of ship.
It's just a Jedi mission craft, right?
Yeah, it's like one with those like the little bubbles on the front and the three wings.
I'm just saying that there's too many connections, but that one's fine.
Yeah.
I got it. I need to see season 2. It's such a shame though that Ray Stevenson will not be with us.
I know.
Like may he rest in peace. What a wonderful, brilliant performance of that character, man. I hope that whoever steps up to the plate, if that happens, does so with grace, and that I wish them the best of luck.
Yeah. I have heard rumors, and I don't know. I mean, take this with literal like one grain of salt. Don't know how true it is. That apparently a lot of Ahsoka season 1 was actually cut, and there was a lot of Balin scenes that were cut, and they are going to possibly try to use some of those scenes for season 2. But ultimately, while that would be cool if it works out perfectly. But I don't want to have a Leia Rise of Skywalker situation.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say. Those scenes are so uncomfortable, man.
Yeah.
It literally feels like they're just filling in dialogue like needlessly with that.
Yeah.
It's like she's not even there.
It feels very NPC dialogue, you know, like they kind of aren't really responding to what you're actually saying. As much as of a valiant attempt as it was to not like just kill off her character, I get that, but I personally, after the passing of Carrie Fisher, after the passing, at least in the Marvel universe with Chadwick Boseman, I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, it's okay to recast, like things happen, right? Like, and I get it's kind of situational to everything, but Balin's character is still so untapped, and they clearly set up so much more with him for this next season that I'm like, I think I'd rather just, and I think there's plenty of actors you could get for it. Like, will Ray be my number one? Of course, but I'm completely open-minded to having another person take over the role. I don't know Ray Stevenson, but he seemed like he was a very story first kind of guy, character first kind of guy. And I think he definitely seemed like the type of person to be like, if he passed, to be like, yeah, get someone else to play the role. Like the character deserves to grow.
People will disagree, but Solo, A Star Wars Story, is a great example of that. Alden Ehrenreich as Han and Donald Glover as Lando, really great choices. And they had stellar performances. And I mean, who can forget the elephant in the room? Ewan effing McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels. Come on. Yeah. Like, I think people are too afraid, the studios are too afraid of recasting simply to preserve the sanctity of these things. And it's interesting because that's like really the only sanctity that they keep is that, these lack of recasting. Please, like, don't give us some Frankenstein story in order to have something seem consistent. Just recast and make it work. It's fine. It's fine. This stuff happens.
It does happen, and it's unfortunate, but like I think when I think of these legacy characters, like I was getting into a debate with someone this week, and there's obviously a lot of backlash of the CGI cameos that are of Luke in Mando and Book of Boba Fett, and I'm like, for cameos, it's fine. Mark was there, they it's not like he is gone. They used his voice. He was on set for these things. They did like really cool technology, but here's the thing. Let's say we had made the prequels in a modern day, like imagine if they had like gotten young photos of like Alec Guinness and like put him on Ewan McGregor or whatever. Like it just would have been we never would have gotten Ewan McGregor's performance, right? Like, and he is, I mean, in most people's eyes, that is Obi-Wan Kenobi, is Ewan McGregor. And so I'm like, I don't like the idea that, you know, these characters are so untouchable that nobody can ever play them ever again. Because, like, we know, I mean, let's think about Obi-Wan. We've got Alec, we've got Ewan, we've got James Arnold Taylor, and we have Steven Stanton playing him in Rebels. It's 4 different people playing Obi-Wan. Anakin, we had I don't know the actor's name, but he played him in the kind of legend stuff with like the Revenge of the Sith video game and Battlefront 2, and I believe Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, and then obviously we have Hayden, and then we have Matt Lanter. For Ahsoka, we have 3 different actors who play Ahsoka. That's Ashley Eckstein, we have Rosario, and we have Ariana Greenblatt. Like, this is not new stuff. So, you know, Baylan is a pretty new character, and he was, I think, everybody's fan favorite, but like the story here is too good, I think, to be, you know, and I don't mean to be harsh, to be thwarted by, oh, let's just try to avoid the situation or kind of do this kind of weird zombification of the character. Like,
yeah, I don't think actors, I mean, just assuming this in general, I don't think they covet the role so much as to bring disadvantage or undermine the story at play, right? Obviously, if they're still around and they're up to do it, then absolutely. But I mean, let's say that I was an iconic, I had some sort of iconic role, right? Or, you know, in some sort of movie. I'm not going to write down, oh, by the way, if I die, I want you to plaster all of our outtakes on the story and make it work. I don't want anyone replacing me. Like, what? Who does that? I guarantee you, and may she rest in peace, but I guarantee you, Carrie Fisher probably would have preferred a recast as opposed to, you know, them just doing that weird stuff with her character, you know?
Yeah.
Because not only did she cared about Leia, but she also cared about just kind of the process of the story and the filmmaking as a whole. Yeah. You know, they wouldn't have come back if they didn't care about it. And I feel like Rey would probably do the same because he seemed like he cared about Baylan a lot. Yeah. And if this stuff happens, then it happens. Yeah. But ultimately it is to serve the wonderful story that they're trying to make. Yeah. And like we say about Star Wars stories, how it's like it should be told around a campfire and it happened this way or it happened that way. Well, maybe it could also be said that, oh, well, they looked like this or they actually looked and sounded like that, you know? Because in that scene of season 7 of the Clone Wars where, brief spoilers if you haven't seen it, I don't know, Ahsoka discovers, or like she hears that vision of Anakin striking Mace and Mace going down, and you hear this conjoining of both lines of both Hayden and Matt Lanter saying, "What have I done?" That's just a perfect mesh of the two there. And that was the only time that they did that, but it was so great. I loved that. And also like how in Kenobi, when they perfectly melded together the voices of Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jones, James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. Samuel L. Jackson and James Earl Jones combined.
James Earl Jackson. But those two, like, it works. And up until that point, as a child, I was never able to find the perfect, like, I could never get the reasoning out of my head of how are these the same person? They don't sound the same. But as soon as they did that scene, it made it work for me in my head. Yeah. And so, yeah, there are ways to do it without insulting the actor or the story, because, sorry, very tangential, but that's all I had to say.
No, I agree. We never really talked about that on the podcast, so I agree. I will say that, like, while it is weird in Rise of Skywalker, I do think for that specific instance, they made the right choice, because I think it would have been, because I'm like, okay, she's barely in the movie, you know, and I think she serves her story in the plot. And it's like, while it is weird because out of context, you know, and there's kind of weird kind of glitches in the CG and stuff, like, it is. I think they made it work for that, but for a character like Balin, who I mean, Carrie Fisher was known as Princess Leia, and nobody ever played that role ever again.
Yeah.
Ever, right? She was the only person who played Leia for a long time. And so, like, that makes sense. But, when we get a young Han Solo, it's like, okay, let's just get a new guy, right? Like, I much would have rather preferred in Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, like, while the technology is cool, I would have preferred the opening to be similar to The Last Crusade, where they had, River Phoenix play young Indy, and it's like,
really
imagine if they got Alden, dude, like to play young Indy in the beginning of Dial.
I definitely agree. I think that I honestly think that maybe they should have gone back to the drawing board as to how to properly optimize it.
Yeah.
Because the scenes did feel uncomfortable, where she was just kind of saying things that you knew wasn't relevant.
Yeah.
And so it made me wonder, well, what if the opening of The Rise of Skywalker was a somber one? What if they had that scene of Leia, laying like reaching out to Ben and then like laying down, right? Because they did it shadowed because obviously it was someone else. And I think that way maybe it could have worked. It could have been like how some movies start with one of the worst tragedies to befall the characters,
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying in the title scroll, Palpatine's back and Leia's dead, like, I feel like there could have been another way.
Yeah. I think there definitely could have been, I think we just probably maybe see differently on the matter. I'm like, while the scenes do feel uncomfortable, it's like, I think they handled her character perfectly, her character perfectly in that movie as they really could. Like, I think there were different options, but because Leia is so near and dear to me, and I like what she does for Ben and Rey in that movie. We're getting so tangential right now. I'm like,
we still have to do a Rise of Skywalker episode.
We do, we really do, because I remember we got into that on our tier list.
All right, how about we stop it here and just say we'll continue this later?
Okay, Rise of Skywalker episode, it's coming. I promise you
guys. arguing parents in front of the kid, going, oh, stop, not in front of them. We'll get back to this.
All right, back to Mortis. I remembered, and also when we were talking, I remembered how everything happens. So the ship crashes. And Ahsoka gets bitten by the little funny guy that's the son, who actually kind of Sam Witwer has talked about this before, very similar to when Maul comes back. This little funny guy says the chains are the easy part, and it's in reference to, he said this in interviews, they included that as a kind of a reference to the Sith code with where like whatever they say about the chains, you probably remember it better than I do.
It's just
it's like he's like this my chains are broken, the Force shall free me, or something like that. That's
pretty much. Yeah.
But Anakin, Obi-Wan is like, we gotta stay put, but Anakin ends up going and finds finding Ahsoka at this kind of like monastery or whatever, whereas at least the son's kind of little place, whereas where Obi-Wan goes to find the father and the daughter. Let me go to my next page of notes. I don't really have that much, to be honest, so we'll just kind of fuck through it real quick. Basically, Anakin finds Ahsoka. She is corrupted by the dark side. She's like, you suck, and he's like, no, I don't. And then they fight, and then I believe this is all in this episode. That they kind of confront the son, is what Obi-Wan and the daughter confront the son, and they go to the altar where the dagger of Mortis, to be able to defeat the gods, is at. Yep. So Obi-Wan gets that, and which is another little cool piece, because I believe that dagger is tied in Legends to Abeloth as well. I think so.
There's a whole lot of things that we need to talk about.
Yeah. I got to read those books, even though it's like 9 books.
I'm sorry, man. I'm not reading those.
Yeah,
like unless something happens or like
shows up in them, and I'm like, I gotta know. And also, like, it's more Luke Skywalker content post Return of the Jedi. I'm in my Luke era right now, bro. Like,
I know it's a lot, and
it is, but to me, it's entertaining. Where I'm like, I want to read that stuff.
Yeah, no, I get it. I gotta be in the mood for it.
Yeah, and it's the thing where I'm like, I think once I'm in the mood, like I'd probably fly through them. But did I misspell Balin? No, I didn't. I just wrote it weird.
Ballin.
I think it said the way I wrote the second A, it looks like it says Balon, which I know a lot of people spell Balin with an O in the, but it's 2 A's, guys.
Bologna.
But you're trying to say baloney?
Yeah.
Baloney is so weird, bro. Anyway, so yeah, they Anakin deals with Ahsoka, and then son and daughter, they duke it out. And then everyone is the father pulls up and he's like and sends them through the windows, and then unfortunately but I think the father is the son's about to kill the father after Ahsoka is kind of doing her little thing or whatever. And Ahsoka hands the dagger to them, and then the daughter sacrifices herself instead of the father. And the son is, like you said earlier, is very mournful. He's like freaking out. He's like, no, like this is not what I wanted to happen.
Sam Witwer's performance there is really stellar. He just kind of
so good.
He just screams why, and like it echoes, and he flies off.
Yes.
Which is once again indicative of the dark side. It's all about suffering, you know, like he's in this anguish after his own act of a consequence he did not intend.
Yep.
And it doesn't learn from it.
Just like Anakin. Just like Anakin's fall. So yeah, the daughter is dying, and also the son kind of like was like, all right, you've outlived your usefulness, Ahsoka, bye-bye, and kind of she gets kind of dropped, basically dead.
I think pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, she like her eye, like there was no life in her eyes, like they were blank white, you know, like all like her soul had been stripped from her body, and then the father basically Anakin like begs, he's like, there's got to be something you can do, and they say something along the lines of like, let the last act of your daughter be to like give life, you know. And so Anakin and the father do this really cool thing where they like position themselves between the two and like transfer the energy, the last living energy of the daughter into Ahsoka, which again, very cool repercussions for later on, because then you get Morai, and then you realize like Ahsoka has a little bit of the spirit of the daughter in her at all times.
She's technically the embodiment of that now. So what does that mean? And welcome back. And what do you mean welcome back? Not welcoming you back, we're welcoming ourselves back, because Grayson and I sped through time to go to the next day to record because it was getting late and I wanted to go see the aurora from the sun flare, and you know, sometimes that just happens. Grayson, where did we leave off?
We left off where the daughter's essence was transferred to Ahsoka, and she was brought back to life. And the son flies away, and our group is now like, all right, we're gonna try to leave again. And Anakin's a little hesitant. Like this whole arc, he's kind of been hesitant to now the words and kind of the like what the father is saying and everything is just starting to kind of become real, and he's like, maybe I shouldn't leave. So we go straight into the next episode, which is Ghosts of Mortis, where Ahsoka is working on fixing the ship, and Anakin is kind of doubting. He's like, if I don't get permission from the father to leave, like it'll haunt me forever. And of course, Obi-Wan throughout this entire arc is like, yeah, classic Anakin. And I was like, I respect that, because I think I would be the same way. But Obi-Wan's like, no. It's like, no.
I have a great idea, SpongeBob. Let's leave.
Yeah, like it's at the end of the first episode and the end of this episode, he's constantly like, Anakin, no. Like, let's just, we don't understand what's happening. Let's just leave. Which I also respect Obi-Wan's perspective on that. But,
the entire Clone Wars series is just Obi-Wan saying over and over again, Anakin, no. Anakin, stop.
Yeah, it's his little brother. But yeah, so Anakin goes to find the father. The father is burying the daughter with the dagger. And then Anakin finds him. And it's kind of unclear, like, Anakin basically asks like what the father is going to do about the son now that he's fully part of the dark side, and the father's like, I'm going to kill him. Like he's got to go. Like it's my fault that this evil is the risk of this evil being unleashed upon the galaxy. Like he has to be killed. But then it's kind of weird because he just kind of like Anakin says he'll help him. Like he'll help him defeat the son. And then the father's kind of like, nah, like it's cool. Like I don't need your help.
Listen, man, you got to get out of here.
Yeah, like he's kind of like he's like, yeah, it's like our destinies are uncertain. Like it's don't even worry about it, kind of thing. But then he's kind of like, go. Like he says go, but it's like to direct him towards the well of the dark side. He's like, this place is strong with the dark side or whatever. So he doesn't like tell Anakin to like go to the well of the dark side. He like Anakin is just kind of like walking, and then he speaks with Qui-Gon, the apparition of Qui-Gon.
Right.
Yeah, so Qui-Gon's apparition does indeed speak to Anakin, and he doesn't quite tell. He does tell him about a place far from here being the well of the dark side. He doesn't say go kill the son. Like Anakin's like, what do you want me to do? And Qui-Gon does. He kind of doubles down. He's like, I do believe you are the chosen one, that you'll bring balance. And he says basically like, trust your instincts, like you'll know what to do when you get there, sort of thing.
He did.
So he didn't. Like I mean, Anakin did, but like I mean, he goes there, and the son is like, I'll show you. Basically, he's like, let me show you the future, bro. And then Anakin, to prevent going to the dark side in the future or bad things happening, then falls to the dark side.
It's so like, honestly, this is one of the most interesting sequences in the Clone Wars and in Star Wars to me, is where Anakin is just straight up shown the future. He's shown what is going to happen. And after he sees this, he's like I know what I have to do, but we don't actually know what he's going to go do.
So he talks to the brother, and he's like, and all corruption and evil will be destroyed in the galaxy, right? Like he thinks, going through this path, and like I know he knows that the Jedi are going, like he said, like one of the quotes that he says, he's like, I know now that the Jedi will be the ones who stand in the way of peace.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because like he's really sad. Like he's straight up like, he's like, but I will cause so much pain, like he seems very viscerally upset. And even when Obi-Wan shows up, like Obi-Wan tries to get him, Anakin essentially dupes Obi-Wan, and like, the son shows up and zaps Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's just like, Anakin, why? And Anakin just straight up says, I'm sorry. It's super mournful. It's not very Vaderish. Instead, it's just like, I hate what it is that I have to do.
Yeah.
But this is what I need to do.
It's very meta because he's making this turn in Mortis to hopefully stop what he will do in the future and to like course correct. But it's like, it's very paradoxical in a way. It's like you said, we don't exactly know what he's trying to do. I mean, I would assume it has to do with destroying like the Jedi. I don't know. Like it's very weird.
I mean, like even in that regard, he's still aware of, I will cause so much pain, like, so I don't know if he even wants to do that.
Yeah.
Or even align with the Chancellor, because like, he sees Alderaan blow up. Like he watches Alderaan blow up. He sees himself choking Padme, killing the younglings. He detests everything that he sees. Yep. So I'm just thinking like, what did he have in mind? And also, I've always kind of thought that I wonder if this is truly him 100% thinking this, or if he is also just kind of under the influence of the sun, corrupted, like Ahsoka was. Yeah, because he got the weird eyes, and
yeah, he's got the eyes, but like also there's like dark circles around them. Like he
doesn't
looks
sick. He looks sick like Ahsoka does. Like Ahsoka had like poisoned veins because she was bitten, but then Anakin was shown stuff, and so then his eyes are kind of darkened out. So maybe it's like he was kind of corrupted. I think if he was just shown the future, he would hate it, but I don't know
Yeah.
if he would fully, like, I don't think that effect would take place over him.
Yeah, especially because, like, we know, and this is one thing that I think there's kind of two ways of, like, falling to the dark side, is we know, like, sometimes the presence of the dark side is so strong that, like in a you know, an old temple or an old artifact or whatever, that can make people just, like, get, you know, be corrupted, like Ahsoka and Anakin in these episodes. But then you have your genuine falls to the dark side where it's, like, a Dooku type character, where they genuinely, like, they go through these horrible things because they think it's the right path. It's two different ways to get there. Like, I think, you know, when I replayed, like, some of the like the Legends games, like with the dark, like I played Dark Forces 2 and Mysteries of the Sith, and it's like in one of the games I'm like, I like that this fall to the dark side is cool, but then in the other one it was like, so like in Dark Forces 2, there's like some points where, like, if you just, like, they make it seem like, and I think this is like a really funny, interesting subtopic that just kind of deals with, like, alternate paths and endings in video games. But, like, you're presented the option to, like, kill one of the Dark Jedi. That's what they're called in the game, the 7 Dark Jedi or whatever. And it's like, if you make that choice, then the rest of the game, like, by the end of the game, you will take over the Empire and become, like, Emperor. And I'm like, what is that, dude? I was
even
like,
if
because
you kill one, like,
it's like it starts down the path where you, like, start unlocking dark side abilities, and then it kind of like trajects you in one way. But I'm like, okay, but you're still, like, the Empire is still your bad guy. You're killing this person because, like, you want to destroy them. Yes, it is a dark act, but you're doing it because you think it's for the greater good. So, like, sometimes there's those little things where it's like, as soon as you make a dark side decision, oh, you just work with the Empire now, right? Like, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. But then, alternately, and that's obviously kind of the non-canon ending or whatever, non-canon to Legends. But then you have in Mysteries of the Sith where Kyle goes to Droman Koss because he's investigating this thing, and he ends up becoming corrupted by the dark side because of, like, of how much dark energy is there. And I'm like, see, that's cool. Like, that's a fine kind of, like, you know, it's just the darkness is so overwhelming that it literally changes the person. That's cool. I like that idea of kind of being just like a different type of thing. But I laugh sometimes when it's just like, oh, you killed one guy because they were a bad guy. And it's like, well, you're bad now. You're the emperor of the universe. Like,
yeah, I think in that instance, that does seem a little bit extreme. I could also kind of equate it to the dark side ending of The Force Unleashed, however. You know, like, if you decide to kill Vader, that starts down that dark path where eventually it turns into Lord Starkiller, which, you know, in the context of the story, it wouldn't seem like that would be something you would want to do.
Right.
Granted, I think there are a lot more reasons, but... I don't
still that
know.
same thing.
Yeah, it kind of still feels like the same thing, but that is an interesting point. Maybe it's like there are, at the very least, that we're establishing now, kind of two ways of falling to the dark side. One is that you embrace it, and the other is that it simply happens to you, like it corrupts you. And honestly, like, that kind of gives me further enlightenment in the case of Revan and Malak. They made choices that brought them further down into the dark side. But as far as we know, they went into the unknown regions with the intention of finding the Emperor Darth Vitiate and killing him. And all we know is that they returned as Dark Lords of the Sith. And so I'm wondering, was Vitiate's power so monumental at that time that simply being there, like finding Droman Koss and, like, being in Vitiate's presence, they just simply became corrupted?
Yeah.
So
kind of similar
honestly,
to Bastila as well in KOTOR, where she just gets tortured and then she just turns evil, right? Because you're like, she's just being infused with the dark side.
Like the Inquisitors as well. You think about the Inquisitor, you think about Trilla, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of corruption. It just happens. A lot to think about in that regard.
It's like brainwashing in a way. It's just pretty cool. But and it's also important to note with Anakin's case, like, he is in the wellspring of the dark side, which is literally just like a little thing on the floor and then lava, which is, I'm like, okay. Oh, but like,
I think it's cool.
It is cool. But when you think of, like, the wellspring of the dark side, I would personally think something more in line with, like, that weird pit in The Last Jedi on Ahch-To,
Right. Yeah.
where it's like, you know, you're like, it's scary, you know, you're like, what is this? But it's still cool. I mean, the dark side is kind of varying, but yeah, Obi-Wan ends up finding the father in chasing Anakin. And I don't really remember what they talk about, but Obi-Wan's like, all right, I got to go get Anakin, you know? And then, Ahsoka in the entire episode is just like in the ship, and they're like, all right, fix the ship. Wait, stop fixing the ship because the sun might come get it. Okay, fix the ship again. Okay, stop fixing the ship. Like, she's like, ah! Just like, what? Yeah. I'm fed up with this world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously Anakin, like he kind of goes through he sees the future, and the son promises all of these things, and the son even quotes some direct like verbiage from Palpatine, which I believe Sam Witwer has stated was like very much intentional. That the son, he wanted the son to be like literally, if you took like the kind of the three big Sith lords that you think of in the movies with Maul, Vader, and Palpatine, he wanted to make, you know, the son kind of like this combination
of the three.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good. I think that's a really good visualization there, because I would say he feels very akin to that.
Yeah, and it's like it's still, you know, Sam Witwer's voice, but like sometimes he kind of slows it down and starts to speak more like Palpatine, but then he starts to speak a little bit more like Maul, and then you get that like kind of more Vader, like it's cool and it's very subtle. Speaking of subtle, there's a couple of things. The Mortis, throughout these episodes, there is a theme. Like the Mortis theme is the Force theme, but it's the same kind of like Force theme, but at the very end, it kind of turns into like this almost mysterious open ending, as opposed to kind of like this final note in the Force theme. It'll be cool to maybe talk to Ashton about that.
I think that would be good.
I think he'd appreciate that. And then I never really picked up on this, but when the brother and Anakin speak right before he is shown the future, very subtly, you can also hear "Battle of the Heroes," which is really cool. And then, of course, you hear the Imperial March when you see the big Vader cloud. So a lot of cool themes. Oh, I forgot to mention another thing, and this was something that Ashton pointed out. So shout out to him again, because we sent this to you sent this to me, I think when Ahsoka came out, kind of when Ashton was blowing up. In the Mortis episodes, when Qui-Gon first shows up to Obi-Wan in the first episode, you hear Qui-Gon's theme.
Oh, that's so great.
It's like
he has a really good theme, man.
It's cool, and I'm like, as a kid, I never realized that was Qui-Gon's theme, and it's like that confirms it right there that's Qui-Gon's theme, and that's just so cool.
Also, when Anakin is shown all of this stuff in the wellspring of the dark side, and you see the Vader like cloud behind him, and he screams no, you know. It's also just very in character with how he does that at the end of Revenge of the Sith when he gets put in the suit, and almost just kind of feels
Return
like
of the Jedi in the special editions as well.
Yeah, like don't tell me that Anakin never screamed no. Like he was all about doing that. So
yeah, and then it's not no, but he also like in Kenobi he screams Obi-Wan, right? Like and that's pretty kind of the same thing, you know.
It just makes me think of Huyang talking about Anakin when like Hera asks him what Ahsoka's master was like, and he was just like, intense.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a very intense guy.
Yeah.
Love him though. So he pulls a GTA on Obi-Wan, takes his bike and goes to the ship. And Ahsoka is either fixing or not fixing. It's Schrodinger's Ahsoka's fixing the ship. She's either fixing it or not fixing it unless observed.
Yeah.
She like, how is it that she knows that Anakin is on the way and it's not him, right? Does Obi-Wan contact her?
I think Obi-Wan calls her, and she's like Ahsoka, like the Anakin is coming, and along with the brother, like they cannot be allowed to use that ship, like, you know, figure out a way. And she's like, but I just put it back together. And so she basically, my dad was like, she took the keys, like she like takes this thing and she hides on the ship, and then they can't find her, and then eventually I believe I believe she steals the bike that Anakin had and goes back to Wellspring, and she's like, "They ain't getting nowhere without the keys to the ETA class Jedi shuttle." So then the one day really took the toll on me. Now I got to remember what happened right after that. After double checking again, the brother,
don't worry about it.
Don't even worry about it. It's this is what happens, like I said. But the brother, the son, whatever you want to call him, goes to kind of make another backup plan. I think his plan is really to kill the father. I think, and he ends up getting the dagger from the tomb of the daughter. And the son admits, he's like, you were sister, you were truly the only person that I ever loved. It was really sad. And then he ends up going to the monastery. But in the meantime, while Anakin is waiting at the ship,
he's just sitting there.
Yeah, he's just like, the father shows up and basically boops him on the head, and he's like, he says very
Doctor Strange just boom.
Bro, my pages are falling out of my journal. What is this, bro? That's great. Well, I'll have to tape those back in later. Let's find my notes. The father says, "My son broke the laws of time" when he frees Anakin, which is very interesting. I think ties again maybe a little bit to the War Between Worlds. Because I think that's kind of intrinsic to all of that, because we know that time is elusive in the War Between Worlds.
Well, that just makes me even more curious, because like if what I'm assuming with that line is that the father knows like what's gonna happen in the future. So if he knows that Anakin's gonna bring balance to the Force, why doesn't he just let him go? I mean, why doesn't he know that this is going to happen anyways, and that he does say that my son broke the laws of time, but then he does say that like nothing is set in stone. So it's kind of contradictory, where it's like he, but at the same time, like if the son did show him the future clearly, and I mean that is the future. That is every little thing that he shows him is what happens. Yeah.
So it's it's more questions, but it's questions that I'm kind of fine being there, because I don't think they need to explain it. But just like it. Whenever stories and stuff mess with time, it always just kind of it makes things a little confusing. But I mean, maybe the son showed him the future if he let himself be ruled by the dark side, and he did do that, so that is what happened. So, a possible future, always in motion the future is, as Yoda says. So the father even admits, though, he's like, just because he showed you that does not mean it's set in stone. But even then, the father isn't like, he doesn't tell him what he saw. Like, he wipes Anakin's mind of that future, obviously, because that would create huge continuity issues if Anakin just was like, I know this is gonna happen to me.
Yeah, I remember people were freaking out at the time that the episode came out.
Really?
At first. Yeah, they were just like, what do you mean? This is breaking canon? You wouldn't do this. Not to me.
Isn't it crazy how much, that stuff is modern now, where people are like, the Acolyte's breaking canon. It isn't out yet.
Dude.
Maybe just wait and watch it.
If anything, like anytime something comes out, people are always like, it breaks the canon. I hate it. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then they turn around, eventually. So.
Yeah. Or they don't. Well, who knows?
Or they don't, and they stay miserable forever. Sorry.
Yeah. Just think a little bit. Think, Mark. Think, Star Wars guy. Think. So they go to the monastery, and then they kind of make a plan to defeat and kill the son. And so there's a little bit of a tussle, as I said when I was rewatching it.
They tussle, and that's just what it says on the script, I bet, during the action sequence. They tussle.
They all tussle. And ultimately the father ends up sacrificing himself, stabbing himself with the dagger, takes it from the son, or I think it's maybe even Ahsoka helps with that. Although that could have been the previous episode. It doesn't really matter that much. He gets the dagger, stabs himself to cut off kind of their powers, and then as they are holding each other, Anakin just stabs both of them, which is a really cool moment. But it is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And that's
interesting though that the son doesn't get killed by the dagger.
He does not.
It's only the father and the daughter, right?
Yes, but Mortis then collapses right after this. And the brother or the son seemingly does die. I don't know if they show it. They show the father pull a force ghost where they his body just kind of his physical body collapses in his clothes, lay there with his crown and everything. They don't specifically show the son doing that, because it's just but the son seemingly does. It's open-ended. I'll just say that. It's kind of one of those Asajj things where it's okay, well, he's dead, but is he dead?
Because I've always had that question because if the whole dagger thing, it's oh, this is the only thing that can kill us. How does he die from a lightsaber?
But then wouldn't the father know that? Because the only way you can kill you can't normally kill them with a lightsaber. So the reason the father does that is because it strips them of their powers and just kind of makes them mortal, which also creates more questions because it's so is the father giving them their powers?
So I guess if the father was once he died, then the son could be killed, I guess.
Yeah, but maybe it's the son is just very for indefinitely but temporarily defeated. He could come back. It's not really explained.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know, but I've got a lot of notes here in this specific part. Dude, in the little kind of dome, because it's all glowing when this kind of battle, this standoff happens, this dialogue happens, there is a Loth Wolf up on the ceiling. And I'm that is years before Rebels came out, and they knew about that.
Yeah, that is really, that's way far ahead, dude. What the heck?
Yeah, I saw that and I was I paused it. It was Dad, that's a Loth Wolf right there. And he's wait, yeah, that is. We had never picked up on that. Now, I didn't notice any whales. There is notably in the first episode, there's kind of this winged creature that I think I've identified is not the son's bat form, but the daughter's almost hippogriff form. Because that's really what it is. It's just a hippogriff or a griffin
or whatever.
Yeah. But that's there, but it looks a little bit kind of dragonish in a way. But yeah, the Loth Wolf on the ceiling, I was Dave Filoni, you slick son of a gun.
He's been planning a lot of this stuff for a long time, it seems.
I would love to ask him, is this his favorite arc in Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe he doesn't have one, but I feel they put a lot of effort into this one,
Yeah, and then it just kind of simmered for a long time, but now we're finally getting a resurgence of that sort of content.
Yeah,
it's about time.
Yeah, because I think he put the threads there in Rebels. It starts in Clone Wars, put the threads in Rebels, and maybe it would be cool at some point in the future to visit kind of the episodes that deal with that, with the one that has the mural of the Mortis gods, and of course the War Between World episodes, maybe how that connects. Of course, with the whales and whatnot. But I guess, that's really in terms of just the plot, Mortis begins to collapse, all the rocks that are floating end up crashing, the monastery crumbles, and everything just kind of gets smashed. And then, our main characters, our 3 Jedi, everything kind of goes white again, almost like when they entered, and they wake up on their ship just how they got there. And Rex says it's they were there the whole time. He's actively talking to them, and he's General Skywalker, and he's we've been gone for a long time. What are you talking about? He's I don't know what you're talking about. So,
which makes me think does that mean Mortis exists outside of time?
Yeah.
So I then wonder, well, if it exists outside of time, if people were to go there again, would the Mortis gods be there? When does this kind of... It's very, all of this stuff relating to Mortis is just so mysterious and mystical, and I'm a big fan of it.
So I think, we on our first part, but it's still in this episode, of our first kind of section of it, we talked, do we think Peridia is Mortis? Because, you know, Peridia is, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go ahead and say no, but there are still signs that like maybe it could be, or at least it's like maybe like a mirror plane of like it gets into like some D&D stuff, bro. But like Peridia is when we the entire time we're there, it's completely desolate. You know, there's nothing floating, but there are these towers. And of course, the big question is like, we have the giant Mortis God statues.
Yeah, we have those.
And then the biggest thing is what we are, you know, have asked for a long time is the light that Balin is looking out to. Like, it looks like the Mortis Monastery, but it's a yellow light instead of a blue light. But the Mortis Monastery was destroyed. So it's...
I wonder if it's like I wonder because like when they go into the red diamond shaped thing, like it's a flash of light. So I wonder if wherever he goes, it's kind of like a portal, you know?
Yes.
This is like a more tangible portal, whereas the diamond just kind of appeared when it wished.
Right.
Now I don't think Peridia is Mortis, but I think it is, we know it's absolutely connected in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
This is, other than Lothal, like the only other place that seems to have a direct connection to the Mortis gods, because Lothal had that mural, you know. And yeah, with Peridia, you know, we have those Dathomiri structures, and this is assumedly where the Dathomiri originated from, like the Night Sisters. But also we have those runes about Kujet, which is, you know, one of the Zepho, and so there's some connections to them. And yeah, like there is some credence to Peridia potentially being Mortis because it is a wasteland. Maybe this is after Mortis crumbled. And if Mortis exists out of time, if Mortis exists out of time, then maybe when it was destroyed, it was thrown into time, you know, but like a long time ago. Say time again. I honestly don't know. I really don't know. And I think at this point it's one of those things where you circle the answer that says not enough information at this time.
Right. Yeah. You're like, or when you're doing like 20 questions and you're like, maybe. Right.
Maybe. I don't. It makes me wonder, especially those statues of the three of them, right? Because the one of the daughter is destroyed. You don't see her there anymore, and people, including myself, when we saw that, it's like, oh yeah, it's because the daughter's dead, but all of them are dead. So. Yeah.
And it's also back to the father disappearing, but not seeing the son. The daughter's body doesn't disappear, and she's stabbed with the dagger. Yeah.
So I don't are all of them dead? What is the significance of the daughter statue being destroyed? Morai still exists. We hear, at least we're pretty certain at this point, we hear whispers of the son in like the first episode of Ahsoka.
Yes.
And there's so much that has yet to be revealed. And I just have more questions.
Yeah. I think like now with the context of Ahsoka, we have somehow learned more and also not at the same time.
It's just more questions. Like my biggest question is just how does Mortis affect the galaxy as a whole? Because seemingly what happened in Mortis didn't change anything about the external factors of the galaxy. And yet the father was speaking as if that was the case. So I really don't know. What is its significance? What are the Mortis gods? Why are the Mortis gods?
Like what, who, why, how? Like literally every question.
Where, when? Literally every question.
Yeah. I think like it's honestly when I think about my two, in terms of like kind of far off projects, I think the two that really intrigue me are the James Mangold, you know, Ancient Jedi, because I feel like there has to be ties to it somehow in that, right?
Yeah.
Like
cool.
even if it's just like that's kind of where it started, like the Jedi started from like the worship of the, you know, the light or whatever of the daughter, if they're around at that time. But like the Jedi distress code says 2,000 years, but I believe this movie will be 25,000 years before A New Hope. So that's a lot. Maybe even be longer.
Literally
than that.
At the beginning, like square one with Jedi and presumably Sith.
Right. And then of course Ahsoka season 2, which is probably where we're going to get the most. And I really hope, like, I think a lot of people have different kind of thoughts. I personally hope it just stays on Peridia until the end or whatever it may be. Say like Sabine goes back, like, because we really don't know what happens. I know a lot of people were like, oh, we want Ezra back in Ahsoka season 2 and everything. And I'm like, personally, I would like those characters to be in the Heir to the Empire stuff. Like, you know, keep them dealing with the threat of Thrawn, but then Ahsoka and Sabine and Baylan and Shin and all those characters and Huang being kind of kept in that bubble of like two parallel stories that are both of great importance. You know, the physical threat of Thrawn and would you say like the spiritual threat of whatever Baylan is doing? If it is a threat, like maybe he has pure intentions, you know?
I honestly don't know. I will say that the show essentially told us that, like, I think Ezra's time in the Ahsoka show is done. Finding Ezra and Thrawn was the catalyst to getting to Peridia, but that's been solved. They're in the galaxy now, and Ahsoka straight up said like we did succeed in our mission. You know, Ezra's back home, and like our place is meant to be here. So they are meant to do something in Peridia. As for what that is, not sure. When are we gonna get Shin back?
She has to play some part, right?
Oh yeah, she 100% will, and I'm really excited to see how her character develops.
I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of have to, and this is just getting into which is part of the episode, Ahsoka season 2 speculation. Like, I would not be surprised after Shin has been abandoned by Baylan if Ahsoka and Sabine have to come to Shin and be like, we need your help. Like, we cannot do this alone. And her being like, no, I'm not gonna do that, because she's obviously still, out of all of those characters, she is steeped the most in the dark side, right? Is Shin, because even Baylan, like, while he does some evil things, we rarely see him what I would say being immersed or in the dark side, right? Like, I think Shin is the one who acts the most out of anger and impulse, like when she chokes Sabine, or when she takes out the people on the bridge and like the New Republic stuff. And like, of course, Baylan, you know, took out a lot of those people as well, but he didn't seem, the only time I feel like you ever see him angry and threatening is when that New Republic captain is like, he's like, we are no Jedi, you know, like.
Well, also when Ahsoka hurts Shin, that he gets angry and they start fighting. So I think, I agree, because she seems relatively unconcerned about what Baylan's really looking for. Like, she wants the power, and Baylan is more like, this is for like the greater good, like greater purpose kind of thing. So like, I think different kinds of dark side there, but Shin definitely fell more into that. But I think the setup is there. We got a scene where Ahsoka offered Shin to come with them, and she refused. So like, in case they wanted to work, in case like they wanted them to work together in the show, it started being set up. Right.
Because she just kind of like runs away. Like,
she just runs away. And now she's enlisted the help of those marauders on the planet.
So she's kind of like, I think they kind of set her up to be almost like the warlord on this planet, while you know, Ahsoka and Sabine will probably catch wind of whatever Baylan is doing and realize that, like, hey, like, this is a big deal. And you know, I doubt Baylan specifically is like, your path is separate, like, go. And I don't see Baylan coming back to Shin and be like, oh yeah, you want to come back and join me again? Like,
by the way, I need your help, sorry.
Like, I think Baylan is a character that seems very, I think he knows what he's doing in a way.
He's like Dark Qui-Gon, to be honest.
Honestly, Like, what, dude? Well, it's not gonna. I'd fine if it doesn't happen. Maybe if it was just VO or something. But I mean, considering Qui-Gon was a pretty big deal in these episodes, these Mortis episode, it would be really cool to at least get some VO. I mean, he came back for Kenobi, but he's kind of made his statements of like, you know, like I kind of did it for a TV show thing, like it's kind of getting diluted, you know, and like to an extent I kind of agree with him. So I don't want him to be like, come on, Liam, come be Qui-Gon now.
He has, I'll say that he has more than shown his dedication to the role of by coming back time and time again.
Absolutely.
And so if he wants to hang up the towel, like, I'm fine with it. Love to have you back. Glad you came back for Kenobi just for that little snippet. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Kenobi, Tales of the Jedi, like,
Tales
you know,
of the Jedi, Clone Wars, all that jazz. So yeah, if he wants to come back, then yeah, it could be another situation where he's just saying no because he doesn't want spoilers to revolve around.
Sure.
Or like to stoke the fire of anything, because he knows how Star Wars fans are. I think he equated it to a cult, which is just so funny to me.
I mean, it's the most divided cult I've ever seen in my life, you know. But it's true.
But yeah, there's a lot of options here, and I think the Mortis arc of the Clone Wars super influential, in the most subtle way, and now it's finally being broken into once again. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see what happens.
So my final question for you is, you know, and we've talked about this, like with our name being Mortis FM, a name we are both very proud of, a name that I think is very special, and of course makes me appreciate this arc so much more. I mean, I bought this T-shirt because of that. Yeah. I have the Mortis God hands mural on my keychain. Like I you know, so we're obviously, I think we've always enjoyed this arc, but now we appreciate it even more. When it comes to your favorite arcs in the Clone Wars, which is so hard because there's so many good ones, like, does this reside in your top Clone Wars arcs?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no question on that. I think it is just as we stated in part 1 of this one recording, there is a little bit of Star Wars for everybody, and this one really satisfies that mysticism, overarching plans of the Force kind of thing. And I think that it taps into that high fantasy part of Star Wars that is just really, really great. And it brings us a lot of new ideas, and I love it. I love it when Star Wars gets weird. I think it kind of branching out into these weird celestial deities and the questioning of what the Force is, and things happening outside of time, and manifestations of light and dark, and something in between, you know. I think it's really, really good. Not something I would expect from the Clone Wars show. Like, if I had not seen it, right, and I heard that there was a show about the Clone Wars, I would think about Gendy's, and I'd go like, oh, cool, like more of that. And
Clones
then they just show me, they just show me like all that stuff, and I really love it when Star Wars gets weird. I think that this is something that George really wanted to do, and I'm glad that he had that done. Because I think clearly affects Star Wars modern day so much.
Yeah, I think George, like from what I know, was a pretty big part of this arc. You know, like because you know he would
a big part of the Clone Wars.
Right. Like, I mean, and I remember when I watched it for the first time, I was being like, this is weird, but I was like, I like it. Like, this is a cool type of weird. I completely agree with you. You stated it better than I could. I think it satiates the fantasy element of Star Wars, really doubles down on it without being like, but then kind of jumps right back in the saddle of, you know, clones and bounty hunters and all of that stuff. And that's just, it's really cool. Like, this is the like, you know, we've been talking a lot about Edge of the Empire and Force and Destiny are the tabletop games. It's like, this is like Force and Destiny, but like at its like ultimate, just full force, you know?
Yeah. And that's something really special about Star Wars that I think the Clone Wars is probably the best at articulating, is that you can dip into any kind of genre within this that you want. You can do the horror stuff, the high fantasy, war films, like with Andor and Rogue One, and at the same time, like, you can watch that stuff, like, you can watch Andor, and it's still fully believable that Mortis exists somewhere out in the galaxy, because it's just so vast and so multifaceted. And I believe that that is what makes Star Wars so special and so long-lasting, is that so much can be made within it.
Yeah, I think if there's any type of, like, content, I think growing up you think of, because pieces of media would do this, they make you think that, like, inherently Star Wars feels a little bit smaller because, like, oh, these characters are showing up, or it's, you know, it's this, like, you know, 20 set of aliens that we see or whatever. But as time has gone on, like, this, I mean, the fact that, like, yeah, like, I can totally believe that this and Andor exist in the same universe, because even Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka don't know who these people are, right? Like, this is, and those deal with, like, some of the most main characters in Star Wars of all time. Like, when you're talking about the ranking of, like, who are the biggest and most popular and important characters in Star Wars, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are all on that list, right?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, like, I mean, after reading Light of the Jedi and just seeing, like, again, like, how big the galaxy is, how big the universe is, and how big the franchise is, I'm like, I appreciate this arc even more. So I'm very excited to get more answers. And please let us know what you think about the Mortis arc. Hopefully, I mean, I think at this point, this is going to be about a 2.5 hour discussion. So hopefully it was enjoyable for you all.
Yeah. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
And hopefully you got what you wanted, because I know some people wanted us to talk about this, and I got what I wanted, because I had also been wanting. I'm people. I wanted us to discuss this. So
depending, and from what we've talked about, like, if you guys have ideas for maybe what you want, kind of like we mentioned, an expansion of what we kind of learn about Mortis and Force stuff in Rebels, because there's a lot of that in there with the Purrgil and the Lothwolves and Lothal in general, a lot of that, we would be more than happy to do so. And I imagine as Ahsoka season 2 gets closer, we'll talk about this even more.
And I'm sure even more so after. But also in that regard, since we are technically covering the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars, if you want us to cover another arc, let us know.
Absolutely. I mean,
there's a lot of stuff I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, I think covering the entire show of Clone Wars in, like, an episode or something would be, like, ridiculous. So
I don't know how we would do that.
Yeah, like, I mean,
maybe like one word for every episode.
Yeah, they're like, cool, really cool. No,
cool, really cool. Kind of weird. Cool.
But I think going through arcs of the Clone Wars and even Rebels or whatever, I don't care. Like, those little bite-sized snippets, I mean, we talked about 3 episodes for 2.5 hours. So imagine what we could do with, like, the Umbara arc, or, you know, the Wrong Jedi, or whatever. When freaking Reiko Hardeen, you know. Chat pack?
Yeah. Let's break one open.
Let's pop one out. Question 80. Ooh, wow. Okay. Have you ever had a bad feeling about something and been right? What happened? I will say, if it gets too personal, don't feel like you have to get too deep into it. I have one. I had one that happened literally this week, which is really funny.
So I'm gonna try not to get too mystical about this. I have certain like I would say untethered and unspecific beliefs about what we don't know. So, like, premonitions and dreams and all that sorts of stuff. And I have a lot of strange premonition-like dreams that will come true. And so I think for this instance, I would say I had a dream that I was, like, walking outside of my house, and I looked to my left and I saw my cat, and I was like, what is she doing outside? That's really strange. And I never have that sort of dream, like, honest to God. And the next day, she got lost for 3 days. Like, she had gotten outside and we lost her for like 3 days. And I will still think that that is the strangest thing in the world, that I had a dream about my cat being outside, and then the next day, and she has never done this, she ran away and got lost. She's an inside cat, so like her being outside is not something that is normal.
Yeah.
And like that sort of stuff has happened before too. Like weirdly, it's a lot of pet related dreams. Like when you and I used to work at Disney, I had a dream about I went home and saw my dog Maggie, and I pet her, and I was like, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to see you, you know, because I really missed my dog, and I remembered like someone being in the room and telling me, savor this because the next time you see her is going to be the last, which was really weird. And when I got home from Disney 3 months later, she died. And so like that sort of stuff, like I'm not saying I'm 100% like, yes, this is like I've got psychic powers,
Right.
But there are strange premonitions that I think dream-wise having a bad feeling about that and then it happening is just weird.
Yeah.
You know? And I've had more like real life experiences where I'm like, I've got kind of a bad feeling about this, like like you just get feelings about something like maybe I shouldn't go out tonight, something doesn't seem right, and then like a storm ends up happening, or like there's a terrible event that happens at a shopping center, you know, gun related, right? So yeah, that kind of stuff does come up. That sort of stuff does happen.
Yeah. I mean, we speak like on the side very in depth about our dreams and things like that. I have dreams that are more like parabolic, poetic, I guess, in a way, but I have had I've had dreams just like that before, where like I've had a dream about something happening and being like, oh, that's weird, like that's not reality, and then of course like sometime later I'm like, wow, like I can't believe I was right about that, like, and not I wouldn't even think about it beforehand, and then it's like because I dreamt it in a dream, then I was like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that before, and then it ended up becoming true. The other night, I won't get into too in depth into it, but I have a group of people that I hang out with, and you know, going there that evening, I just had a bad feeling. I was like, something's gonna happen, right? There's gonna be like, I feel like there's gonna be an argument, or someone is gonna get like just something is gonna happen, and it was kind of tailored towards a certain person, and I was like, I don't know, like, and I was like, maybe not, but we'll see. Lo and behold, there was a whole argument that happened that was just, it was, I mean, yeah, it just was kind of came out of nowhere. We were all kind of caught off guard, and I was like, there it is. That's like, that was what, like, and it wasn't that I was like stressing as I was driving there. I just kind of had this like, this little like gut
just a
feeling.
weird
I was
feeling.
like, yeah,
Something's not right.
Got a bad feeling about this, you know? And it's interesting that you bring up the premonitions and dreams, because that's also, I think, I mean, this is obviously the Star Wars chat pack, like, it's what Anakin, like those are very, like, Jedi having dreams of these things, like, exactly what you described, very much happens, like, and that's why I think it's such a, you know, people kind of clown on in stories, like, oh, of course, they had a dream, have had a bad dream or whatever, and it's like, okay, let's akin it to, and honestly, this is making me appreciate this moment more. Like, let's think about Luke, right? Luke in Last Jedi, controversial topic or whatever, but like the people are always like, oh, he tried to kill his nephew because he had a bad dream. Well, first of all, he didn't try to kill his nephew. It was a fleeting shadow. Watch it again. People love to take that one scene where he's like just fully pale, like, you know, just crazy eyes. Yeah. And they're like, that's the one that happened. I'm like, no, that's the one that Kylo says to gaslight Rey. But then in the real version, he's like, he turns on the lightsaber and he says it passed like a fleeting shadow. But like the Force in Star Wars is very, what is like the adjective for premonition? Premonitory? I don't know. Whatever, however you would say that.
Prophetic, maybe?
Sure, that's a better way to say it. Yeah, and we know this because of Anakin. We've seen Obi-Wan and Kenobi where he's, you know, having these bad dreams about little things that he's done or that could have happened.
Foreboding, you know,
right?
Kinda,
yeah. And so this is nothing new. So like the idea for someone like Luke you know, the weight of the future of the Jedi on his shoulders for 30 years, and then he has this feeling, this sense in this Force, this dream that his own nephew will be the one to bring it all down. Like,
Yeah.
and he was right. That's exactly what happened. Snoke had already corrupted him, and it's like that. Like, I mean, it makes sense, you know. And again, he didn't actually try to kill his nephew, but he was right. The premonition was right, so it's valid.
It was, I think a lot of it was a testament to the one who avoids his destiny often takes the path to meet it, you know? Like, or some, like, one meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. That's the line. Thank you, Kung Fu Panda.
Right.
But Luke, like, yes, Snoke had already turned Ben's heart, but it was Luke's ignition that really just sold Ben. That was what made it over. So it was the dark side working through Luke, and in his fear, he turned on his lightsaber, and in that one simple act of indecisiveness, like, that's what did it.
You know what? To bring it full circle, Cole, the quote for the final episode of the Mortis arc, and then we'll end it here. It says, "He who seeks to control fate shall never find peace."
Exactly, 100%, man. That's what a neat little bow.
Yeah. That's
Thank
cool.
you for watching. Thank you for watching Mortis FM, everybody. Really great arc. We've talked about our origin arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us at Mortis FM. You can follow me, Straights8. You can follow Cole
at the.cosmic.drifter on Instagram and at the Cosmic Drifter on YouTube.
You should do it.
Do it. You will follow these accounts.
Keep tuned for next week. I believe we will have another very special episode. Maybe a couple hints were in this episode as well. We'll keep you posted. But as always, may the Force be with you. But I just set up you saying that because I didn't want to say as always, may the Force be with you. And then you also say always. So may the Force be with you.
Yes.